Good morning. It's February 19th. We're here for our regular scheduled commissioner meeting. And at this time, I'll call the meeting to order and ask everyone to please rise and join in the pledge. All right, we have a presentation at 10 o'clock that will get as much business conducted as we can, and then we will get into that at 10 o'clock. We'll get into the presentation on the COVID vaccine. So at this time, I'll look for a motion to pass the current agenda.
Mr. Chairman, I would like to propose a couple of adjustments. I am not prepared to vote on item number 4 of the consent agenda, nor item number 3 of the regular business, and so would propose that we table those two, and then I would ask that we pull the workshop item and not have a workshop today. And so, Mr. Chairman, I would move for approval of a amended agenda.
With an addition, wasn't there one addition that we had?
I'm sorry, that's right. I was supposed to have that ready. It would be to add one additional item, and I'm sorry, I don't have that in front of me. Just a moment.
And what did you want to pull from regular business?
So item 3 from regular business and item 4 from consent. And then, sorry about that. So then to add an item to consent, so it would be the new item number 4, and this is, I'm sorry, this would be to the regular business. So to add a new item number 3 to the regular business, and that would be Resolution 2025-076. And the heading of this is Franklin County of Washington State Resolution to advise against the use of genetic biologic vaccine platform technology on the children and adults.
Commissioner
So
Baumann, that is item number 2, so all we're doing is adding the number 2, the item number 2 on the regular business.
I'm sorry, just one moment. Would you come back over here?
You're adding a resolution.
A resolution number to item number 2.
So just stay here with me for a second. Okay, let me start over. I'm just gonna start from scratch, see if I can't get this right.
All right.
Third time or fourth time? So, Mr. Chairman, I would move to amend the agenda as presented to table item number 4 on the consent, and to add an additional item to the consent agenda. And this item is to reappoint Mark Jensen to the Franklin County Civil Service Commission Board. So we would pull the existing item number 4. I'm sorry, I would like to table that one, and then add to the consent the reappointment of Mark Jensen to the Franklin County Civil Service. And then to change item number 2 from a presentation to a resolution, and resolution item 2025-076. And then also to pull the workshop from today's agenda.
Had you also indicated you were going to table item 3 under regular business, or not?
Yes,
Did you?
that was my intention, to
Okay.
table item number 3 from regular business.
Second.
There's been a motion and a second to pull to table item number 4 from the consent agenda, add a new item to the consent agenda, reappoint Franklin County Civil Service member, to pull item 3 from the regular agenda, and to add a motion, resolution 2025-076 to number 2. There's been a motion and a second. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Well, we got through that.
Mr. Chairman, I think there was also, and maybe you had gotten to this and I missed it, you were also not going to have the workshop discussion today. I think that was also part of the motion, so I just wanted
Yes.
to make sure that that was clear.
Yes.
Yes, that was part of the motion. I just didn't recap it, but it was part of the motion. Okay, with that, we'll look for approval of the minutes from last meeting.
No additions or corrections.
No corrections.
Everything looked good to me. Consent on the approval of that. Approval of warrant registers and payroll rosters.
So we have two today. Fund expenditures. Move for approval of fund expenditures in a total amount of $998,008.93. And as presented, and note that it has been reviewed and signed by two representatives of the auditor's office and the county administrator.
Second.
There's been a motion and a second. All in favor, say aye.
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 Salary clearing payroll. Move for approval of salary clearing payroll and emergency management payroll in a total amount of $1,191,421.79 as presented, and note that it has been reviewed and signed by two representatives of the auditor's office.
Second.
There's been a motion and a second. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Takes us down to public comment. Is there anybody in the room for public comment? Anybody on the phone? Seeing nobody coming forward, we will move down to the approval of the consent agenda, items 1 through 4.
Mr. Chairman, I move for approval of the amended consent agenda items 1 through 4 as presented.
Second.
There's been a motion and a second for the passage of the 4 consent agendas that has been readjusted. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Regular business, Franklin County Council of Governments. ARPA report presented by Zach Reddicky.
Ratkai, Commissioner.
Sorry about that, sir.
Okay. All right, thank you for having us out. I'm Zach Ratkai, Local Government Programs Director for the Benton Franklin Council of Governments. I brought our Executive Director, Michelle Holt, and our Grant Navigator, Kristen Eby, with us today. And we're here to present the 2024 recap for the ARPA Economic Resilience Funding that was provided to the COG by Franklin County. So just real quick this morning, simple presentation on just some of the 2024 highlights and our continued efforts. So we'll provide a little bit of background, a little bit of highlights on our technical assistance for our communities, updates on grants, funding, and grant eligible items, and then just our general ongoing activities that we provide for this community. So if you recall, a joint memorandum of agreement was with Benton County was ratified in May of 2023 to provide ARPA dollars in the name of Economic Recovery Coordination. And a sense, the tenets of that was to research and identify any recovery or redevelopment projects, provide technical assistance to communities within the county and the county itself, identification of grant eligible projects, and facilitation of any projects should they come up. So just a little bit on our technical assistance program. We obviously provide one-on-one staff meetings with county staff and the city staff for towns and communities within Franklin County, just to check in on eligible projects, ongoing issues and items of the day, and any ways that the Benton Franklin Council of Governments could help. We do have participation in the monthly city manager and county administrator meetings with our executive director to get a read on what's going on in the counties and where we can step in. We are involved on the economic development side with TRIDEC and their case management meetings, identifying incoming industry and businesses coming in, as well as our general discussion meetings with the Economic Development Partners Group. And we also provide our Congressional Connections meeting, which I'll go in a little bit more detail later on in the presentation. So a big crux of our program for the Economic Development District, and as I brought Kristen here today, we did in 2024 hire a grant navigator. And that role is to really identify all of the funding opportunities that come in through the federal government, the state of Washington, any nonprofit funding that could help offset some of the localized costs for infrastructure and planning and development in general. So we comb through large documents to find what's relevant for our communities. That's why we want to meet one-on-one and learn, what do y'all need? What are your priorities? Out of hundreds, if not thousands of funding opportunities in 2024, we identified 45 that were applicable to send out to our communities in both counties. The focus obviously has been on transportation and infrastructure, but also knowing some of the public legal assistance and just offsetting some of the costs to provide prosecution and things like that. We were able to identify some legal resources for programs that could help our courts and judicial systems as well. Another thing with technical assistance is our Small Cities Summit that we host with our communities. And of course, all communities, big or small, are invited to provide technical assistance. One of our highlight ones was last spring, hosting one on the congressional direct spending, where all of our communities could meet with our federal and congressional staff delegation to talk about the CDS programs and how to make a great application to get funding from Congress. We facilitate discussions with communities, and I think particularly of note in Franklin County was in-depth discussion and work we've been having with the city of Connell in the wake of Lamb Weston closure to see what we can do to find funding to help them with some of the public resources they need to provide to the remaining community. We do have our congressional connections, so we do facilitate discussion with the staffs of Congressman Newhouse and Senators Murray and Cantwell. And offer this every 2 months at the COG. When our state elected delegation is out of session in Olympia, we invite them as well. And it's a great chance for our communities to show up and talk to everybody that's represented in those forms of government, to introduce projects that they're thinking about, discuss funding requests, and talk about ongoing projects and provide updates to that as well. So some of the grant eligible projects that we've been working on as well, is we convene our broadband action team, which provides 2 areas of focus. So digital equity for broadband as well as infrastructure planning. Specific to Franklin County, we assisted with the Franklin PUD on a grant to work on some of their infrastructure and putting in broadband where it's needed most. And working with a large number of communities and our elected officials and nonprofits in the region to help support broadband and broadband expansion in both counties. We also are finalizing and going through our brownfields assessment and planning program. We are putting in for an additional grant this year as well. But that helped offset some of the local costs for environmental impact assessments, building material assessments. So if you have an old building and there's asbestos in there, this provided funding to not only our communities, but also private property owners to help offset some of those regulatory costs as well. Specific to Franklin County, this program was used with the Thunderbird Motel in downtown Pasco to do some assessments there and provide a reuse plan as well as a downtown area plan for Pasco as well. And then finally, to conclude, we just, as part of our local government programs and economic development districts, we have our mission, but we're also looking to see what other ways can we help our communities navigate the world of projects and expansion, addressing growth, and economic development and business support. So that's our update for 2024, and we can stand for questions at this time.
Questions, commissioners?
Thank you for being here, Zach and Michelle, and I'm sorry, I forget your name. Kristen, thank you for being here today and sharing that. A couple of questions for you. Would you kind of describe what the downtown Pasco plan, what that is and what it means and how does that work? The brownfields plan, I'm familiar with some of the needs there, but not really sure what that looks like or how that works.
So I have to be brutally honest in that I did not dissect the plan. We're basically the facilitator between the environmental planning agency that conducted that plan and the city of Pasco. But my understanding is that plan took what was originally a downtown core revitalization plan and actually looked at an inventory of properties that could be considered a potential brownfield. Of course, a lot of people have some misconception about what brownfield means. I mean, it really could be a property that has a building that was built before 1970, so it might have asbestos. Most people think of brownfield as something that's highly contaminated, and really it could be any environmental factor. But it identified properties within that greater downtown core that were potential brownfields that, if redeveloped, could help enhance the downtown area. And then looked at how key areas of redevelopment could enhance the overall economic vibrancy of downtown. So that plan was presented to the city to do with what they may.
Okay, thank you. That's helpful. A while back, some of our staff had reached out and had asked for a kind of a list of what you guys have worked with the county in the past. Would really love to have that, just so that I kind of have an idea of what the history is, and tried to dig into it, but it's kind of hard when you sometimes don't know what it is you're looking for, and just combing through is kind of difficult sometimes. So that part would be really helpful. And then offline, would love to visit with you just a little bit about some of the what you do and how you offer. Recently, I had the city of Mesa reach out and ask me a bunch of questions that I didn't have a great way of answering many of them. Some of them I could, but would love to have a conversation with you offline about maybe being a part of a larger meeting and just some brainstorming. So. As a land developer myself in my private business, I certainly understand some of the things you do, and would like to collaborate a little bit more as a commissioner and as Franklin County with some of the services you provide. Thank you.
Perfect. We'd be happy to provide that information. And the City of Mesa is an associate member of the COG, although given the size and nature of the staffing and elected official availability there, it has been difficult for us to engage to find out how we can help. So we welcome that conversation.
Commissioner Mullen?
So do you have access to, like, government grants that directed towards the county?
So what happens under our grant navigation program now is that we endeavor to either proactively comb through the notices of notices of funding opportunity as they're released, and sometimes it's a deluge of those releases that come based on our knowledge of projects or needs that we've been made aware of. We comb through those notices to find out, are there potential matches for funding. And then depending on our level of knowledge and what we see in requirements, availability, that kind of thing, we forward that information on to the member jurisdictions that it may apply to. If we're particularly aware of a specific need that a funding opportunity was a good match for, we'll engage with a direct request for some additional information. Are you interested in following up with a funding opportunity, and how can we help? And that's part of what the vision for the Grant Navigator is to recognize that all of our jurisdictions their staffs are all overburdened, and oftentimes there are these funding opportunities that become available, and nobody even has the time to dig in and just do that cursory look to say, do we even apply? What are the odds of being successful? How competitive might it be to even determine whether they might want to try for the grant? So that's where we're seeing the most of our work right now, is just making sure that opportunities aren't getting missed. And then we've had a few occasions thus far, Kristen's only been with us a few months, where we've been able to take that next step, the most recent of which has been with the prosecutor's office at Benton County, actually. And there's been a couple of actually 3 separate funding sources where they said, we really want to go after this grant, but we need some help. And so Kristen has been able to engage with their staff to help pull the information together, make sure that the submissions are ready and submitted on time. We've yet to be successful in receiving any of those grants yet, but we just keep putting them out there. It's kind of like fishing. The more you cast your line, eventually you're going to be successful for something. So at this point, it's still early days, and our grant navigation program is in a 2-year pilot right now. We're funding that under some federal funding that we had received previously to just test it out and really see if it will provide the value to the jurisdictions that we hope it will. I will say that with the staff transitions that have occurred at Franklin County, we've not been able to be quite as engaged as we would like to be in support. But I will say that Craig Erdman in Public Works and Shirley Jones have always been fantastic and responsive, and we work with them very well. And I would want to take this opportunity to also just share my appreciation for the Treasurer's Office, who does a lot of financial work on behalf of BFCOG, and the staff there have been fantastic and just really good for us to work with. So they have a good team there.
Well, that's good to hear, and please keep us in mind if you see any grants that fit.
We
our
will for
narrative.
sure. And the more proactive that your staff can be for just making sure that we're connecting with the right people to help engage those processes, the better off we can be to help each other.
All right. Well, thank you. I appreciate your work, and I appreciate the fact that reaching out to let us know what we can do to help our situation here. So thank you.
You.
So I'd like to take this opportunity to introduce our new Planning and Building Director, Wes McCart, who is in the audience. And we're very thankful that he was willing to come down and work in Franklin County and help us out. He very knowledgeable of the Growth Management Act. He will be in touch with you and talking with you. I serve on this board, Wes, so I'm usually in attendance sometimes, but usually I'm on the phone. And I've had problems with my phone, is why I wasn't there last meeting. My phone's acting up. All 3 commissioners got new phones now, so there won't be any more excuses. But a couple things that I might mention is we are now split with congressional representation.
Yes.
And I would encourage you to reach out to Baumgardner for those northern cities too.
Yes.
And that you got 2 congressmen that could work jointly together to help Franklin County. So we are represented by 2 congressmen. The other is I know particularly that you guys deal with the roads, and I've brought this up in the meeting, but I'd like to bring it up here today, and that is a new crossing across the Columbia River. And that would be from Self Landing to Horn Rapids. With the development that's going on in Franklin County, everybody's got to go down south to get on I-82 to go around, and it has created quite a traffic jam. Meetings that I got to get to in the evening, and that bridge, sometimes if there's an accident or it's logged up and there's no way to get across it, we are in desperate need for that crossing, and then also maybe even a beltway, which Benton County has already started. It'd be nice to have a loop around this like I was familiar with in DC with the beltway back there. So just to help the people travel. So that's an idea there that I think we're behind the times on another crossing across the Columbia River. Your thoughts?
This is a very timely comment, actually. Representatives from TRIDEC and BFCOG have been meeting with member jurisdictions since about November to talk about the need for our community to be able to, A, speak with one voice, put that weight of 320,000 population to work for our benefit. We are now, with some calculation changes, the 3rd largest metro in Washington state when you look at our 2-county area. And the other part of that conversation was, of course, a little ahead of recent changes in Washington, D.C., but a discussion of potentially making a legacy kind of ask for transportation funding for a specific a major piece of infrastructure, something that would be very challenging for us to fund as individual communities, such as a Fourth River crossing or extension of the Beltway or some other ideas. So actually, this afternoon from 2 to 4, we are hosting a meeting at the COG of the Public Works directors and the managers and administrators of the jurisdictions to actually brainstorm and look at if we had a fully built-out regional transportation system looking forward to 2075, where, 50 years ago, we had 100,000 population. In 2075, if we keep on our current growth projection, we'll be at 700,000. And 50 years in terms of major infrastructure is actually not a significant amount of time. So looking forward at that time, what are the major pieces of infrastructure that our system is currently missing to be the system that we're going to need it to be in 2075. So we'll be going through some brainstorming and ranking of prioritization amongst the jurisdictions of exactly the things you're talking about. The Beltway, a Fourth River crossing, whether it's a North Richland crossing or something else. And so we can identify what are the projects that are generally felt to be of highest priority for study so that we're prepared to try and seek proactive funding. Obviously, the funding picture right now looks pretty bleak, both at a state and a federal level, but that may not always be the case, and we still have to keep moving forward with planning. So yes, fingers crossed there's going to be some good momentum that comes out of that meeting today.
Zach, would you like to add anything?
No, I think Michelle covered it pretty well.
You didn't act like
Yes,
you
I
are.
agree.
All righty. Well, I thank you. Oh, Commissioner Bauman.
Will there be a remote option for that meeting this afternoon?
We do not have a remote options for that meeting. It's logistically a little difficult with how they're going to go through the process, but we will have a summary available for what is determined and why. But we do have a good cross section of the jurisdictions that will be represented by either their public works director, their administrator, or both.
No chance of just an audio only?
I can sure try and do that for you if you'd like it.
If that works, I'd be interested in following along.
Perfect.
Thank you.
Commissioner Mullen and I won't be able to attend because we have a Board of Health meeting that starts at 1 and it sometimes goes an hour and a half. So we don't know what we have going on there at that meeting. But we certainly thank you for coming today and your presentation and look forward to being in the room with you.
Perfect. Thank you so much.
Thank
All
you.
right, thank you.
Mr. Chairman, I would move to amend the agenda to take item number 1 of the open public hearing and move it to now, so as we can move that through.
Yes.
Second.
Been a motion and a second to take the open public meeting resolution 2025-073 and move it to now. So at this time, would like to ask, I guess it'd be Mr. Erdman presenting. And at this time, I'll open the open public meeting. Mr. Erdman?
Okay, this is a section of Road 60. I do have some couple of slides if you want me to put them up.
Sure.
Oops, if you get plugged in.
Apparently, I'm not technically adept enough to get my picture up.
Try to get over the past today, and it ain't looking good right now.
What did?
I said I'm gonna try to get over the past today, and it ain't looking.
What you want, right?
Yeah.
Two of them are we
Like, an edit.
will do a Clint did here.
Oh, great. I'll let you
You should be
decide.
able to.
That's what I thought. We should just, up there. Yeah, Board of, I was in that directory, BOCC there. And it's those two PDFs down there. The other one's the vicinity map, then we can go to that one.
There we go.
Okay.
You got a pointer right there too, Craig.
Great.
Isn't it good to feel wanted, Austin?
Needed, wanted.
Needed, wanted.
Appreciated.
Good at building roads, not worth
Completely
the darn with
necessary to
electronic
the
technology. Okay, so this is the area we're talking about right here. This is Road 60 and Three Rivers. So that section of Road 60 was short platted in 1995, plat 95-02. Was recorded January 19th, 1995, and had a 50-foot hammerhead radius turnaround as part of its original layout. On January 7th, 2025, the Public Works Office received a petition signed by one of the landowners adjoining Road 60 requesting that the turnaround easement for off Road 60 be vacated. The petition was accompanied by a sufficient bond as required by law. And on January 22nd, 2025, the Board of Commissioners directed me to report on the possible vacation of the said turnaround and report back to the board and have a public hearing, which is today. Findings, with Road 60 having a full intersection now, the road goes completely through. The hammerhead turnaround is really no longer needed. All surrounding lots will still continue to have legal access to the public road system, and therefore it's my opinion that the existing turnaround easement is useless to the public road system. Public Works reached out to the utility providers to see if there were any issues with them. Charter Communications and Franklin PUD had no issues with the vacation. Cascade Natural Gas indicated that they had a gas line within the easement, and we'll discuss that momentarily. So with that, I recommend that the Board of County Commissioners approve the vacation of the leftover portion of the existing turnaround easement for Road 60 as petitioned, and all expenses incurred be paid per RCW 36.87.070. Further, it's recommended that the board retain an easement for the construction, repair, and maintenance of public utilities regarding the gas utility that exists in that easement now. This is pursuant to RCW 36.87140. I will also remind the board that to vacate the said easement requires unanimous vote of the board, as per County Code, Chapter 12.08010. And the vacation will be recorded upon receipt of the sum of $1,063.91 for the cost of this process, including recording.
Questions, commissioners?
The retaining the easement for the gas, that's just a standard 10-foot utility easement?
It's whatever's left over. It would be the area that the hammerhead itself carried.
This portion here is the
Yeah,
retained.
that portion is the area that we're vacating. There's a gas line somewhere inside that easement. This would allow them the ability to come and maintain their infrastructure.
So there's inside of this portion right here.
Yes, I'm not sure exactly where the location is. They didn't indicate. They just indicated that it was within that easement.
Okay, so I'm not in favor of that. I believe that they need to move it into this portion here, which is the public utility easement. And I believe that us instructing them to move their line into that area is appropriate. And not fully sure I understand if we're vacating it without indicating what it is that we're retaining. I'm not sure that I understand that.
All we're retaining is giving them the right to go maintain their gas line. And this only applies to existing utilities. They cannot put in new structure within that easement. They just indicated that they had it within that 45 feet. And it dead ends, I think, right before Three Rivers. So we typically allow them to come in and have ability to, if they have some issue in the future, to maintain their infrastructure.
That would preclude the property owner from using any of that area.
No, it
within
would
a-
not. They're free to use it. It's just that they have the understanding that the gas company does have a right to come in and maintain their infrastructure should the need arise.
Very good, thanks.
So you had a public notice on this, and
Yes, we did. I'm sorry, I forgot to mention that. Yes, we did publicly notice this hearing in the Franklin County Graphic and on our website, I believe.
no objections?
It is,
No, we have no feedback from the public on it.
it is an open public meeting, so as soon as we're done with the discussion, we open it up to the public if there's anybody here.
Okay.
So, Craig, so is that natural gas line in the right-of-way outside of that red line of the area requested to be vacated?
Yeah, they didn't indicate to us where exactly the gas line was. They just indicated that it was in the easement. So I'm not exactly sure where exactly their gas line resides, but it's been there as part of that,
So I believe your description would be similar to if they would have a right to access an area up to servicing a building, and there is buildings adjacent to that.
Yes.
So it would be the line servicing, yeah.
Yeah,
So
or
I-
if they had a break in the line or something, give them the ability to come and service the line. But they can't put in new infrastructure or anything like that. They have to maintain the current structure. So nobody else can come in and add new infrastructure inside of that easement. It's just, it's generally, I recommend this with almost every vacation that we do, just because we don't know location of utilities always in these situations. And giving the existing utilities the ability to come and service their infrastructure is a fairly low risk.
Applicant didn't have any issue with action today.
Yep.
Thanks.
If there's no further questions by the commissioners, we'll open it up to the public. Is there anybody in the public that has comment on this? Seeing none and no further questions, I will close the open public hearing and entertain a motion.
Mr. Chairman, I would move for approval of Resolution 2025-073, vacation of turnaround easement adjacent to Road 60.
Second?
There's been a motion and a second for Resolution 2025-073, vacation of turnaround easement adjacent to Road 60. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Thank you, Mr. Erdman. So with 20 minutes yet to go, I would like to take this time to introduce another employee that was just hired in the Commissioner's office. Alexandria Vargas is going to be helping us in the Commissioner's office. I'd like to introduce her. And again, Wes McCart, that's from Stevens County, coming down to help our planning and building, and I thank you, Wes. Somebody that knows GMA and is going to help us out a bunch. And we'll move down to the Commissioner Administrator updates. Mr. Johnson.
Well, thank you, Commissioner Didier and members of the board. You stole a little bit of my thunder. I did want to introduce the two, so thank you. Thanks, Alexander, for joining us in the Commissioner's office. Former Wes McCart was a former Stevens County Commissioner. Thanks for being here and joining us in Stevens County. I think he brings an interesting set of skill sets, and I just wanted to highlight a few of those. In particular, dealing with land use areas. He was very engaged in public lands issues, rural action, caucus issues. He was a member of the statewide advisory committee on the voluntary stewardship program. The voluntary stewardship program is the manner in which counties are able to protect critical areas associated with agricultural resource lands, which obviously we have a large amount of those, and it's a voluntary type of program rather than a regulatory program. So, in fact, my first meetings with Wes McCart was when he was with the Farm Bureau and looking at the start of the VSP. So he's got a rich knowledge of that. FEMA certified into disaster recovery and general preparedness, so it brings another skill set that I think is really valuable to us. He was on I think he was on a water conservancy board, obviously a really important issue, and particularly in the development area. Active in water resource inventory areas, WIRAs, so WIRA planning as well, so another good skill set for us. Had been associate supervisor in conservation district, so really brings a really unique skill set for us, and so really thankful for Wes McCart coming down and joining us. So thank you very, very much. So I appreciate that and look forward to you working with folks. So I think those are so great to have staff on. We are still actively doing the interviews for a permanent manager for our Office of Public Defense. So we've got a couple more interviews this week, and hopefully we'll be making a decision either this week or early next week on that position as well. The recruitment for the county administrator position is open, and I've been taking some calls with interested candidates that have been forwarded to me from the recruitment firms. So there's definitely interest in the position. So I do want to make sure that you all are kept apprised of that. The first kind of review of interviews will happen during early March, and that's when you'll start to potentially see candidates and the types of candidates that are coming in or that they're recommending for you to have the chance to review. And you'll get an opportunity sometime probably in mid-March to make the selection of kind of final interview candidates for you to actually interview as well. So wanted to bring that out. On the HAPO front, still working with, obviously, very closely with, in particular, Mike McCall with HWL, that is the manager firm. I work every week with them, and we're doing work on the metrics and key performance indicators, and have a tracking document to really indicate to see how those items are going and working through. And so that's been really productive to help us manage the contract. We have had a meeting between county officials and a variety of county officials, and Commissioner Didier, you participated in that, members of the auditor's office, member of the treasurer's office, looking at the general accounting procedures and the both on accounts payable, accounts receivable, revenue, et cetera, and looking at how we're doing it. Is it the most effective way? Are there different models that we can be? And have asked HWL to prepare a new suggested manner in which we will perform those functions. So that should be coming to the county here in the next week or two to take a look at. So again, we'll work closely with the auditor's office and the treasurer's office in relationship to that. The Commerce Grant for $3 million, the procedures to go out to bid for HVAC system there, those are still items that we are trying to work to finalize as well. We did get the SVM letter out that you signed last week, so not heard anything more about that. On the front of things that I'm trying to kind of wrap up that I've been working on is continuing to do final analysis of the status of the kind of the jail medical contract, looking through and working closely with materials that have been submitted to me from the auditor's office to try and make sure we have a clear understanding of why we've been increasing that budget at the end of each year and looking at that in relationship to the actual contract. So continuing to meet and do some work associated with that. Excited again. There's a number of big activities that will be forthcoming in relationship to, in particular, Wes McCart and kind of taking over at the planning section as well. So I would just definitely, and I don't know if folks are going to want to, have opportunities to meet with Commissioner McCart. I know we've had the board members say if these are critical members in the community that you would like him to meet with, please do. Likewise, if there's members in the community think it'd be really valuable for him to meet with you, please don't hesitate. He's got a big learning curve just of gathering and understanding who is in the community that he needs to be reaching out to. So obviously connections with the cities, the counties, other partners and stakeholders. So helping him know who those are. And I can tell you, coming into a community, you don't know many people. So, the leads like that, it's kind of like business leads, if you can suggest some business leads for them, that would be really, really good. I've been working with the directors on kind of the transition plan. So when I leave, what and who will take some of those assignments. I think we'll talk a little bit more about that with the board here in some ideas as well. So that definitely is a functionality of things that I've been spending some time thinking through as well. Upcoming next week, Mr. Briggs and I will be in a work session on the property management ordinance. So Jeff's got me an updated one where we included some new section and new verbiage associated with leasing, just not just not necessarily selling property, but can you potentially lease it? And so what would that look like in the ordinance as well? So a number of items. Just remind you that if you do have comments on the master plan, I did talk with HWL, with Larry Leisure yesterday about the master plan. They've gotten very little feedback on that master plan. So if anyone does have comments, that draft master plan that was presented a couple of weeks ago, maybe a month ago now, so please let me know, or you can contact Larry directly as well. Title 17 updates, again, we've got those to you, so if you've got more on that and want to have another workshop on that, please let me know. It's definitely something that will be on Mr. McCart's agenda to kind of take a look at those updates, took a look at the scheduling for those updates, and working with Mr. Briggs a little bit on that and our planning consultant. I would also indicate that on the property management ordinance, it is just a workshop. We also have asked for a workshop on the CPACE program, which you had a brief comment in public comment here, maybe 3-4 weeks ago. Commissioner Baumann and I met with someone associated with that CPACE. Get in mind, this is a program that I think half a dozen or about a dozen counties, I think, have now adopted and administered generally through planning and building, and it gives the potential for a developer to receive some significant lower interest loans, commercial loans, when they follow certain energy requirements. So it has the potential to really be a good thing for the community as well. So we'll be having a briefing associated with that. I do want to remind you that next Tuesday at 3 o'clock, Teresa, help me out. I think it's 2 o'clock, or 3 o'clock next Tuesday will be the bi-county meeting, finalizing the agenda for that, but largely focusing on behavioral health issues social service issues, veterans issues, the recovery center, operational issues that might be forthcoming, the status of the construction, some field responder programs, some different programming opportunities as well. As you well know, we've got nearly $10 million in funds that have been collected. About 5.6 million of those are now dedicated to the recovery center, which still leaves a significant amount of resources. But before we start making commitments with those resources, it's going to be really important to understand if the county's going to make any commitment to the operations of the recovery center and under what conditions. And so probably before we make too many more obligations of that is really to understand what is that commitment going to be on an ongoing basis. So this will be a great opportunity for the two counties to really talk about those resources, looking at them collectively from what they generate in Benton County and what we have here in Franklin County. So that's my report. Happy to take any questions.
Thank you. Commissioner Bauman, you got 10 minutes. Can you get her done?
Going to be nip and tuck. Thank you, Mr. Chair. Attended Ben Franklin Transit Board meeting last week where the board unanimously adopted a new service plan. And also there was an election of a new board of directors. The former chair was unanimously elected again as the chair, Benton County Commissioner Will McKay. Myself, I was elected as the vice chair, and it's a good meeting. It was good to see the hard work of the staff there. Had a meeting last week with most of our local jurisdictions here in Franklin County, City of Pasco, Port of Pasco, and Tridec, a number of others, and also with the Confederated Tribe of the Umatilla Indian Reservation. And that meeting was held at the airport in the conference room there, and just primarily the discussion was about the shoreline reconveyance, some of the concerns and the challenges with that, and appreciated some of the input that I heard. Had quite a number of meetings with different offices here in the courthouse. As Commissioner Didier stated, been having a phone issue. It got to where that my phone would neither send nor receive phone calls or text messages or anything. It finally didn't work, and so finally I left it laying on my desk because it just wouldn't work. This last weekend was the Happel Home and Garden Show, and just really want to commend the staff there. It was refreshing to see the new energy that's going into that facility and the staff, and just appreciate it. They've got a new energy and momentum there that I certainly want to encourage us to help continue. City Council meeting last night where there was a robust discussion about development fees, and as our new planning director, I'm sure that discussion will come up at some point with us as far as the structure and the cost of some of that kind of stuff. So really been watching carefully and closely with City of Pasco as they go through that, knowing that before too long we're going to have a somewhat similar discussion. Also had a meeting at HAPO with the executive director of Tridec. Tridec is our contracted economic planning organization, and so want to start having a discussion with them, and this also would go with BFCOG as far as really starting to collaborate with them on, they are our contracted, planning organization, both economic and transportation, and really want to start making that something where that we can actually see on a page what the plan is, and so going to work hard on that. I got a call last week from one of our neighbors, the city of Mesa, and they're experiencing some challenges. So I went up there and met with them for a while. I met with their mayor and a couple of their council members and some of the planning the planning division and their public works director, and I said, I don't know if I can help, but I'm going to listen carefully and think about it. So from that meeting, we come to the determination that it would be helpful to have a round table, and so have that round table, been trying to put that together. They thought that it would probably be best if they come down here. So I've talked with the PA's office and and the assessor's office, just trying to understand how do they identify who owns what property and how to do some of their challenges that they're facing. So we're gonna do a roundtable and visit with them. I'm gonna reach out to the COG and ask them to participate in that meeting, and TRIDEC, and have talked to quite a number that have already agreed to be there. And so I don't know if we're gonna be able to help, but we're gonna listen, and when a neighbor calls and asks for assistance, we as a community have always been good at helping our neighbors. So that's my intention with that meeting. Wanted to welcome Wes to Franklin County, so certainly look forward to working with you. I got to know you just briefly as you were at the end of your last term as a commissioner in Stevens County, and certainly appreciate your resume, as Eric pointed out, and have already emailed. I didn't have your email address yet, but asked for your input on Title 17 and some of the discussion that we need to have there. Just a thought came to me as Eric, as you pointed out about meeting the community. Would like to maybe see that if we could have an open house. Maybe we'll discuss about doing that, and inviting those of us that do a lot of work in our community and use our building and planning services. And I think maybe an open house would be helpful. Just thinking down the road as commissioners, that maybe that we ask the departments that are within the commissioner's office, maybe that quarterly in a workshop setting, that we would have our directors of those departments come, and we would just have a roundtable discussion. In a workshop setting, we just sit here and discuss whatever it is that they have concern of, and certainly feel like it's our job to lead the discussion and be collaborative. And so just a thought that's kind of come to me, wanted to kind of to lay it out there and maybe get some input, not a rush on any of that. And then have been digging into some different contracts that we have that were put in place years ago. One specifically looking at some contracts that the HAPO has with different organizations, and think it may be time to update some of those. And so with that, Mr. Chairman, that's my report.
So Commissioner Mullen and I will wait until after the COVID presentation. We are about 2.5 minutes away, and I think we need to take this time to set up so we're ready to go at 10. So we'll recess for 2.5 minutes as we set up for the COVID presentation. Wouldn't be bad to have a workshop with Misa, so all three commissioners could be involved in it. Okay. Okay. Okay.
Exactly. I was sitting there watching the clock. I'm like, oh, about 30 seconds maybe. He does, doesn't he? Well, I figure if we can't convince you to stay, maybe we all just go with you to Hawaii. Thank you for being here.
Okay, okay. Oh, thank you so much. So I go right here.
So we're back from recess. We are going to reconvene the meeting, and at this time,
Yes, okay.
we're going to start the presentation on the adverse effects of the COVID-19 vaccine. And I'd like to welcome Laura Desmarais and Dr. Cole, world-renowned, has been in front of the British Parliament. He can tell you, he just got back from the Freedom Caucus in Florida, meeting with our representation of this country, and with President Trump signing new executive order regarding COVID mandates, especially for the people coming into our country. Louisiana to end mass vaccination promotion, Surgeon General announces. Health and Human Services Secretary Robert F. Kennedy, and what he's doing, he's putting a new board together. Representative Thomas Massey introduces bill to end the COVID-19 vaccine mandates for people coming across the border. I mean, there's a lot going on, and this, Dr. Cole, has been all over the country. We're not here to scare anybody. We're not trying to put any mandates on anybody. All we're trying to do is give everyone the information so you can make a good informed decision on whether or not you want to take the vaccine. That's what this is all about. All we're trying to do is just give you the information. And I got to sit down with Dr. Cole last night. Very informative. In fact, he's got some information that our own state has just said that is pretty revealing. So at this time, Laura, you've got the floor.
Okay. And your tech gentleman is pulling my team up on the phone as well, my texting won't go through, or my internet's not going through.
Another hiccup, but you can go
It's
through.
okay, yes, sir. I can roll with that. Thank you, sir, so much. So I'm Laura Desmarais, and I share my own opinions. Today, we contend for life, our health, our children, our cellular integrity, and I truly believe it's no less than the future of humanity regarding this technology. In Washington State, 238 residents have died. 548 have had life-threatening adverse reactions. 621 were permanently disabled. 236 have had life-altering myocarditis, and 78 have suffered miscarriages. And these are the CDC VAERS numbers, which also show that over 19,000 Americans have died and 19,000 have been permanently disabled. Usually shots are, or technologies like this, or products that are contaminated, after or even less than 50 deaths, they're pulled. Gene therapy vaccines do not prevent COVID, its transmission or hospitalization and death, but they are distributed throughout the entire body, including brain, eyes, heart, ovaries, testes, bone marrow, and to the fetus. 3,800 peer-reviewed studies show harm and confirm that this is not a medical intervention, but it does have over 1,200 disorders that it leaves in its wake with no compensation for the injured, and that is on document 5.3.6 from Pfizer. That's the one they wanted to keep 75 years from the public. This is not a free market product or choice when billions of taxpayer dollars were used to coerce, propagandize, censor dissent, misinform, intimidate the public to take it. And it really gave it a non-market-based advantage. It's not about free market regarding this product. There is no free choice when someone does not have informed consent. All of our government agencies have failed to protect the public. And in fact, they attacked the public. Truth speakers like Dr. Cole were fired, intimidated, threatened. They lost their grants, their contracts, their businesses. They were destroyed publicly. It was a high cost to speak up for humanity. Rancourt et al. Demonstrates 17 million deaths from this failed product worldwide. The injured victims suffer with no voice, compensation, treatment, and the corporations have no liability. They have an average of 20 debilitating symptoms. They are censored, abandoned, and have no just recourse for their injuries. Each injured person in a couple of years costs $50,000 to $2 million. And after their transfer of wealth and everything they own is gone, taxpayers pay the bill after that. They are treated like lepers in the time of Jesus, and society has failed them. This product should have been pulled 19,000 dead Americans ago. And I implore you as lesser magistrates to be strong and courageous. You have biblical and historical precedents and have a God-given authority and duty for such a time as this to lead the charge for Washington State and the nation. Other lesser magistrates will follow your lead. I thank you, Honorable Commissioner Didier, for your courage, critical thinking, and compassion for your community. You have been an inspiration to me, and may you inspire a nation of lesser magistrates to stand tall like you. How far has leadership gone astray when discussing science has become a rebellious act, and colleagues that have spoken out in your state have been put in mental re-education? 1,000 dystopian laws will never remove or supersede God's natural law and the God-given authority and duty He has bestowed upon each of you to stand between tyranny and your community. I do ask also that you please consider signing the resolution today. It's just a consideration. And I, without further ado, will start introducing colleagues, and thank you so much for your time. Okay. Can you see them up there, ma'am? Okay, do you see Dr. McCullough up there? I can't quite see you. Let's see. All right. Is there any way that I can see who's up there so I can call them? Because I can't quite text them. Do you see Kimberly Biss? What's funny is this kind of happens a lot. It's not your fault. It just happens a lot wherever we go. It's really crazy.
Is there anyone from IS that could come assist?
Thank you so much. It is not your fault. This happens a lot. So we're going to improvise. I will call Dr. McCullough.
You were telling me last night that you were in Idaho. presenting to the state representatives, and the same thing happened, correct?
Yes, sir. The same thing happened in the state of Idaho. Dr. McCullough, we're having technical difficulties again, and could you please give your testimony by speakerphone once again, sir? I thank you so much. Hold on, I'm putting you on speakerphone, and we're in Franklin County, and it's an amazing group of people and commissioners. Franklin County, Washington.
Let me know when to start.
You may start, sir.
Good afternoon. I'm Dr. Peter McCullough. I'm in practice as an internist and cardiologist in Dallas, Texas, and I've been called to Washington multiple times to testify in the Senate and the House on important matters during the course of the pandemic. I'm greatly concerned about the mounting injuries, disabilities, and deaths that have occurred after COVID-19 vaccination. My practice at this point in time is overwhelmed with people who've suffered heart damage, blood clots, neurologic damage, autoimmune problems, all occurring after COVID-19 vaccination with all forms of the vaccine. We've studied this in great detail. I have over 80 peer-reviewed publications in the peer-reviewed literature, and I've concluded that the vaccines are not safe for human use. I've personally never recommended them to my patients. I didn't take the vaccines. And I've always thought a much safer and reasonable approach is to treat high-risk patients for acute COVID-19, get them through the illness, and not risk a new form of genetic mass vaccination with messenger RNA. Turns out that the messenger RNA is a synthetic form of genetic material. It doesn't leave the body. As far as we can tell, the spike protein is produced endlessly in the body. That's what causes damage to spike proteins, the spine and the surface of the virus. Now the messenger RNA platform is used for the adult RSV vaccine. I believe that will also have particular dangers when it's in widespread use. And all of the messenger RNA platforms in development have had safety problems. I believe the same will be true for animal use. So I'm in support right now of banning all messenger RNA products, both human and veterinary uses of them at this point in time. Anybody who takes messenger RNA products should be in a research protocol, and then the technology can advance and be more safe over time. But the pandemic is essentially over. We should ban and remove these products from use. It's going to have to be done jurisdiction by jurisdiction, state by state. The federal government doesn't appear to be at the state of removing these from the market, so it's going to be done locally. I'm Dr. Peter McCullough. Thank you so much for listening.
Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. McCullough. Appreciate it. Okay, I'm going to hang up. Okay, well, I'll keep going, okay? Okay. Next time I'm bringing a karaoke machine. Turning on the disco lights. This is turning into a trend. And don't worry, it's not your fault. Science has become a rebellious act. Okay. I'm calling people that don't need slides to give you a little time, okay?
Well, the best thing is we have Dr. Cole in-house.
Yep, that's why we made sure he came in person and the day before. Thank you, Dr. Cole. Hi, dear Brianne. We are having technical difficulties again, and this is a wonderful board, and they're all ready to hear your testimony, my friend. I'm sorry it's not on. Okay, yep, and it happened in Idaho too, but they don't know. I got an iPhone 8 that's ready to party. Okay, Brianne Dressen, I'm putting you on speakerphone. Brianne is the co-founder of React 19. You have the floor, Brianne.
Thank you. Thanks, everyone, for taking the time to listen to us today. My name is Brianne Dressen. I'm injured in the COVID vaccine clinical trials I was so excited about the opportunity to help get us all out of the pandemic. I willingly signed up for the opportunity to enroll in that trial. My injury started within an hour. It started with tingling down the same arm as the injection, and it quickly spread to tingling throughout my body, to the point 4 years later, I still experience this painful, stinging, pulling, tingling sensation every minute of every single day. It's the last thing I feel when I go to bed at night. It's the first thing I feel when I wake up in the morning. I also experienced the other issues that I'm sure you all, if you have been researching this, are aware of, like limb weakness, severe heart problems, memory issues, brain fog. A lot of this overlaps with long COVID. Because of my injury, obviously in the clinical trial, we reported this to the drug company. The drug company did nothing, and I can't say that with enough emphasis. They literally left me for dead. In addition to this, I was removed from the trial after my injury, and my information is not found in the clinical trial report with the New England Journal of Medicine. And I have documentation to back every single one of these allegations up because I know that they are serious. Because of this, we are now in court with the drug company, suing them for not owning up to their obligations during the drug trial. After the drug company abandoned me, the NIH got involved, and the NIH flew me out, where I was treated for my COVID vaccine injury, and I was diagnosed positively with post-vaccine neuropathy. So the government has confirmed that there are COVID vaccine adverse events going on. They have flown several of us out. Several of us have found each other. And there's 16 of us that will go on record stating definitively that the NIH is fully aware of these serious adverse events to the COVID vaccines. Because of the NIH told me point blank to my face while I was there not to talk about the research that they were doing there on the COVID vaccines. And I complied because they promised that they would disclose this to the public themselves. As you guys are fully aware, that information never saw the light of day, and we started speaking out publicly. There is a news article with my name on it in Science Magazine. There's also another one in the Wall Street Journal talking about this element of the restriction of information on and what the government knows and what the public does not. Because of my own firsthand personal experience, I can't emphasize enough the sheer fact that the government has not disclosed this information to you, people who are responsible with being good stewards for the public health of your county. Because of this, I really do express, serious concerns with, forced vaccination for one, but also just the implementation of pushing the mRNA technology forward. There's one last thing I'd like to share, and there's a paper that we have just released today. It's with the lead immunologist Akiko Iwasaki from Yale, and it shows that there is a severe alteration that happens with the immune system after COVID vaccination in general. We found through this larger research study that people are producing vaccine spike more than 700 days after vaccination. We have also found that there's a higher emergence of reactivated EBV, which Epstein-Barr virus, after COVID vaccination. And these are some pretty significant issues. So with that, I will turn the time over back to Laura. Thanks so much for your time, and feel free to contact me if you guys need any further information or documentation.
Thank you.
Thank you, Brianne Dressen. God bless you, and we're doing what we can with the tech here. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Okay. Okay, call. All right. I'm going to call Dr. Biss. Dr. Biss is an OBGYN, and she's about to go into surgery, so I just want to catch her.
Yeah.
Hi, Dr. Biss.
Yeah.
We have state interference with, If you have a minute at least, or I know you have to go to surgery, could you give us your testimony, or I'm saying somebody has interfered. I don't know who, but we suddenly have no tech again. And that's all right. We're just going to roll with it. Do you have a minute? No, we've been knocked out. This is happening everywhere, Dr. Biss. So I'm going to put you on speakerphone, and you can have 5 minutes if you want. I'm sorry I don't have the slides, but we are going to send them to you. And we'll just roll with it. Okay, Dr. Biss, you have the floor. I'm going to turn you on speakerphone.
Okay. Sorry this is happening this way. Thank you for allowing me to speak. I'm Kimberly Biss. I'm an OBGYN that has been in private practice since 1998. And if you include my residency training, I've probably taken care of 8,000 low and high risk pregnant patients across the course of my career. And I'm speaking to you on my own behalf. The FDA has drug categories A, B, C, D, and X. I have a slide showing these categories. I would certainly say that the mRNA injections called vaccines would be classified as category X drugs with regards to providing them to pregnancy patients. There are two drugs we should have remembered before prescribing a brand new out-of-the-gate injection to pregnant patients, which would be thalidomide and diethylstilbestrol. DES, otherwise known as DES daughters, the pregnant patients were not harmed by this drug, but their offspring were and are at higher risk for cervical malignancies, and I fear we're going to see a multi-generational problem now with these vaccines. The timeline for the vaccine rollout to pregnant women spanned from December of 2020 to July of 2021 based on the emergency use authorization granted to the Pfizer product, and those studies were completed in December. There were no pregnant women enrolled in those trials, and there was no safety data when the recommendation in the summer of 2021 was given by both American College of Obstetrics and Gynecologists and Society for Maternal Fetal Medicine. If anything, we had very concerning data both from the Pfizer aftermarket data and as well by a New England Journal of Medicine article by Tom Shimabukuro, both showing an 82% miscarriage rate in women who received these injections. It still stands today from ACOG that any woman thinking of getting pregnant, or breastfeeding should get these COVID injections. We've known from Pfizer's own rat trial data that the lipid nanoparticles go from everywhere into the body and are highly absorbed in the ovaries in the rats. This is concerning because as a female fetus is developing in the womb of a pregnant woman, all the eggs are developed in that fetus by 22 weeks of gestation and they do not regenerate. We have studies showing that this is interfering with men's sperm count and motility. We have slides showing in postmortem testicular tissue that the sperm is completely replaced with spike protein, which is what these injections make your body make. We have data showing fully intact vaccine messenger RNA in breast milk. We have data showing fully intact messenger vaccine RNA in umbilical cords and placentas. That means that this is going to the babies. And with Kevin McKernan's work, which has been verified by other physicians, we know that there is also DNA contaminated in these shots, and that also means there's a potential that DNA is also going to these babies. If you look at the VAERS data, there was a spike in the adverse reports of miscarriage and stillbirth in 2021. And if you compare COVID vaccines to flu vaccines, which we did in a study that's published peer review, I'm one of the authors, and that is, Laura has that slide for you. If a woman receives a COVID vaccine, she's 114 times more likely to miscarry if she receives a flu vaccine. I also have data that Laura can provide to you that I presented to members of Congress in November of 2023,
showing in my own personal practice, my miscarriage rates had gone up by 100% in 2021 with comparison to 2020, and then again went up another 100% in 2022. And this is concerning because the majority of my patients received their injections in 2021, and we were still seeing problems with miscarriages the following year, and that extended into 2023, where in January and February of that year, I had the highest miscarriage rate I've ever seen at 30%. These injections, I feel, are not safe. They never should have been provided to pregnant women. We've also seen issues in our gynecologic patients with increased breast cancer, up 30%, and in 40-year-old women, and many more are having bilateral breast cancers, a diagnosis which is not normal. We've seen abnormal uterine bleeding resulting in surgery in women, and I've also seen a 15% increase in abnormal pap smear rate, which can ultimately lead to cervical cancer. I am requesting that these injections be removed from the market, as I do not feel they're safe and especially should never have been provided to pregnant women. I'm happy to speak to any of you one-on-one if you want to have me present my data with slideshow at the same time. And thank you again for allowing me to present.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, Dr. Biss.
All right, sorry, Laura.
It's okay. You did amazing, ma'am. God bless you.
Okay, bye.
Okay, I have an email for Mr. Holcher. If you- Oh, I can keep going. I don't mind. Okay. All right, should I start?
Is there anything we can do while they're trying to get us on WebEx?
Yes, I will call some testimony again. I will just get to my next testimony, sir. While they're working on that, I
Yes.
have testimony that does not need slides.
Good.
They didn't expect this iPhone 8 with an extra battery.
Oh, we got plug-ins right down there. We could have plugged you in.
Yes, sir. Karaoke machine, the next presentation. Okay, all right. John Doe. Jesus' name. Okay. Great, great, okay.
Hello, Laura.
Doug, we're having tech problems again. You have the floor. You got your 3 minutes, sir. Go for it. I've got the mic on.
Okay. About 4 years ago, I lay in bed in ICU at St. Luke's Hospital in Boise, Idaho, and tried to go meet my maker. And there was an intervention, and I was told, "You're not done yet. You still got work to do, so go do it." And here I am today. To start with, my name is Douglas Cameron. I was vaccine injured in April of 2021 from the Johnson & Johnson gene therapy COVID vaccine. I received my vaccine at work, during work, and 10 days later I was paralyzed from the diaphragm down. I spent 105 days in hospitals and rehab centers in Idaho and Utah. I am willing to show all my medical records and images. Combined medical bills and out-of-pocket medical bills have exceeded $2 million, and I am willing to show all my medical bills and out-of-pocket payments. And it continues to climb. Typical vaccine development timeline generally takes between 5 and 15 years and sometimes longer to assess whether a vaccine is safe and effective in clinical trials. We have not reached the first 5 years of this worldwide gene therapy vaccine trial. Anyone who received these vaccines are in the trial, and the data has not been forthcoming. I, for one, cannot stand by and watch our young people be vaccinated and tested with gene therapy and their unknown long-term side effects. Known side effects include myocarditis, pericarditis, male and female reproductive issues, paralysis such as mine, and many more. Human gene therapy is still in its infancy. One COVID vaccine right now that is on the market and being given is Comirnaty, Comirnaty. The safety information inside says myocarditis and pericarditis have occurred in those who have received this vaccine, most commonly in adolescent males aged 12 through 17 years of age. Please do not allow this stuff to go on. I thank you for your time. Take care, and I'm open for any questions.
Doug, I got a question for you. Was your vaccination voluntary, or were you requested by your employer to take it?
It was my employer was very sick at the time, and he brought it to work, and there was over 100 people there. I worked on a big farm in southern Idaho, and it was not mandated for me, but it was kind of coerced. What they told me was, I said I didn't want the shot, and they said, well, Doug, you're a manager, and it'd sure be better if you got the shot, you know. And my employer right now is not alive. He has passed away, and he was extremely paranoid for anybody to be around him. And shortly after I got home, I was fired from my job. I'd been there 15 years, and so the answer to your question honestly is no, I was not. I guess I voluntarily took the shot, you know what I mean?
I appreciate that, Doug. Thank you very much for your testimony.
Yep,
Is there any other
thank you.
questions? No.
Okay, thank you, Doug.
You bet. Good luck.
Thank
Bye.
you. Okay, pray for us. Okay, do you have either Dr. Jancy Lindsay or Nicholas Holcher on the screen at all? Oh, they're telling me they're trying and it's been glitching. Yeah. Okay. I'll just hold on. I'm rolling with it. Here we go. I have a John Doe, a Washington State worker. Can't reach him. Okay, I will go to Nicholas Holcher. Hi, Nicholas Holcher, we are in the commissioner meeting, and I know they tried to send you a link again. If you don't see that link, can you give verbal testimony, sir? Okay, do you see the link that they sent you? Okay, yeah, it's not there. So we're using the iPhone 8, sir, and I'm putting you on speakerphone. And Mr. Nicholas Holcher, MPH, you have the floor. He's an epidemiologist.
Hi, my name is Nicholas Holker. I am an epidemiologist at the McCullough Foundation, and I'm going to present abundant evidence that supports the immediate market withdrawal of COVID-19 vaccines. So right now, a total of 450 peer-reviewed studies demonstrate that COVID-19 vaccines are fundamentally harmful due to the widespread biodistribution, persistence, and pathogenicity of modified mRNA, the resulting spike protein, and the lipid nanoparticle delivery system. The spike protein now has been shown to be highly pathogenic based on 320 studies, and it's now detectable. Study came out today, 709 days after injection. So the lipid nanoparticles carry modified mRNA to all organ systems, including the brain and the heart, instructing them to become toxic full-length prefusion stabilized spike protein factories. Product mRNA and the resulting spike protein are found directly in affected tissues at autopsy. And postmortem analyses, 325 peer-reviewed autopsy reports indicate a high likelihood of a causal link between COVID-19 vaccination and death involving multiple organ systems. Along with theirs, 12 studies demonstrate that mass COVID-19 vaccination has led to increased mortality. The total number of COVID-19 vaccine deaths worldwide may be greater than 17 million, and that's according to a study by Rancourt and colleagues. Right now, Peter Hotez has been claiming that millions of lives have been saved, but these 12 studies demonstrate the exact opposite, and in fact, millions may have in fact been killed, including Americans. And so the total number of COVID-19 vaccine deaths reported to VAERS, which is 37,544, have far exceeded the recall limits of past vaccine withdrawals by up to 375,000%. We have to go back in 1955 when the Qatar polio vaccine was immediately recalled after 10 death reports. The swine flu vaccine of 1976 was recalled after 53 reported deaths. And in 1999, the Rotoshield vaccine was suspended after 15 cases of bowel obstruction. In other words, the criteria for an FDA Class 1 recall, which applies to products with a reasonable probability of causing serious adverse consequences or death, have been far exceeded. 6 studies demonstrate that COVID-19 vaccination increases your risk of SARS-CoV-2 infection. The 2 key studies there is one by Shrestha and colleagues out of the Cleveland Clinic. They found that the risk of COVID-19 increased with the number of vaccine doses received, up to 253%. Another study by Feldstein and colleagues out of the CDC, they found that children vaccinated with Pfizer prior to infection were 159% more likely to get infected and 257% more likely to develop symptomatic COVID-19 compared to unvaccinated children. 11 reports have found DNA contamination in COVID-19 vaccines documented across multiple manufacturers, vaccine platforms, and geographic regions, with levels far exceeding regulatory thresholds of less than 10 nanograms per clinical dose, ranging up to 65,000% above the regulatory limit. The discovery of large amounts of residual plasmid DNA, including spike coding sequences and the SV40 promoter enhancer, in COVID-19 vaccine vials raises serious concerns about potential genome integration, prolonged spike protein expression, and carcinogenicity. And right now, at this point, we have collected 81,000 physicians, scientists, researchers, and concerned citizens, 240 elected government officials, 17 professional public health and physician organizations, 17 Republican county committees, 6 scientific studies, and 2 state Republican parties have all called for the market withdrawal of COVID-19 vaccines. And in conclusion, immediate removal of COVID-19 vaccines from the market is essential to prevent further loss of life among Americans, particularly those living in Washington and in Franklin County.
Thank you.
Thanks for listening.
Thank you.
Thank you so much, Mr. Holcher. We appreciate all you do. Okay, I'm going to hang up and get our last speaker before Dr. Cole.
Okay, thank you.
Okay. The testimony for the state worker that is representative of a lot of injured, I have a copy of that to give you just in case something like this happened. So, and then our last speaker before Dr. Cole, is that okay? Are we still okay?
Yes, we
Okay.
still have 19 minutes.
We're doing all right considering everything that's happening, and thank you. Okay. I appreciate your graciousness with also rolling with this.
You're making it happen, Laura.
You are allowing us to share, and I'm going to tell my grandkids about you and great-grandkids. Hi, Dr. Lindsay. We are in the Franklin County Commissioner meeting. We have tech problems again, just like in Idaho. And so could you give your testimony just by speakerphone? And I'm going to turn you on speakerphone. I'm sorry, we can just give the slides later. And so thank you so much, Dr. Lindsay. And you will have the floor, ma'am. Hold on. There we go. And
Okay, can you hear me? Are you good?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, I'm going to go ahead and set the timer then because I want to make sure I'm not late on this. So my name is Dr. Jancy Chum Lindsay. I have a PhD in toxicology and molecular biology from UT GSBS, Houston MD Anderson Cancer Center. I have over 35 years of scientific experience, primarily in pulmonary toxicology and reproductive toxicology. I worked on the development of a traditional recombinant DNA peptide-based vaccine in the 1990s at Baylor College of Medicine that caused inadvertent sterilization. So I know how important it is to make sure that whatever you're giving to the public is safe. I'm a consultant and expert witness in toxicology and molecular biology cases all over the world. So I want to talk about the many lies that were sold to the public about the COVID vaccines. One was that these were not gene therapy. They are, in fact, gene therapy. And this was known by the manufacturers. In fact, they warned their investors of this fact. They said that if it was found out that these were gene therapies and they were subject to their normal regulatory status, that the investment may change, it may devalue the stock. So any nucleic acid sequence delivered to the cell that modifies the structure or function of that cell is a gene therapy by definition, and they knew it and they lied. So why didn't gene therapies make it to the market in over 30 years of research? The reason why is because they cause lethal cancers, mostly leukemias and lymphomas, through integrating into host DNA through a process called insertional mutagenesis. They cause lethal autoimmune reactions from the body attacking modified cells, just as being done with these cells that are producing the spike protein, the most toxic part of the virus. There was the risk of inadvertent gene transfer to progeny from the gene therapies, and this was such a risk that they actually sterilized initial recipients of gene therapies, yet we're pushing these on pregnant women left and right with no proper safety studies. The FDA guidance documents typically require 15 or more years of safety studies before these can actually be released. In short, it was only used, gene therapy were only used before when the risk was worth the reward for otherwise lethal disease, inborn errors in metabolism. They lied when they said the spike protein in the shots would not go to the nucleus. The spike protein does go to the nucleus, where it can bind and inhibit tumor suppressor proteins as well as integrate into the DNA. The manufacturer said that the plasma DNA that was found adulterating these shots by scientist Kevin McKernan, up to a third of the shot material was just a template for making spike protein sequence in bacteria, and that the shots would not integrate into your DNA. This is a lie. In fact, in the Pfizer shots, they added specific genetic sequences to take the DNA to the nucleus. The 72 base pair sequence of SV40, the nuclear targeting sequence, that's what it's called, was added to these adulterating plasmids to make the DNA integrate into your genome. This is expected to heavily increase cancer risk. In fact, it has, from insertional mutagenesis. They also added sequences that will allow it to replicate itself in both your bacterial cells and your other cells, your mammalian cells. They added mammalian origin of replication. That should not be there. These were only supposed to grow in E. coli. Why did they add something that allowed it to replicate in your cells? So indeed, these are actually self-amplifying. They are indeed self-replicating already. See the work of Dr. David Spiker, Kevin McKernan, Dr. Ulrike Kummer, and Hiroshi Iwaka. The many lies that sold the gene therapy to the world. 3, these will stay in your arm and don't go far from the injection site. No, the manufacturers, the FDA, EMA, TGA knew from biological licensing applications that were submitted by Moderna and Pfizer that these gene therapies went to all organs and tissues in the body. They lied to the public, telling them that it stayed in their arm. They preferentially go to the ovaries and other lipid-rich tissues such as the brain, bone marrow, and endocrine glands. We were told that the shots only cause the creation of the spike protein, not other proteins. That was a lie. These cause the mRNA is heavily fragmented, and the substitution of the N1 pseudomethyluridine actually causes for additional proteins to be made, thousands of them in peptides. These are nonspecific. They're different between every person. They cannot be predicted, and they're causing autoimmunity. These is a feature of ribosomal frame shifting. In fact, the inventors of the technology, Carrico and Sahin, warned of this. They said that this could cause mitochondrial toxicity and had, in fact, caused death from that very thing with the technology previously. So the shots won't integrate into the human genome. The shots have integrated into the human genome. They integrate into breast carcinoma cells, ovarian carcinoma cells. This has been shown at chromosomes 9 and 12. See the work again of Kummaker and Kevin McKernan. Experiments done in rats to investigate cardiac toxicity of the shot shows that the Pfizer gene therapy actually induced rapid lymphoma 16 days after the shots were given. There are many mechanisms through which these gene therapies can cause cancers and cause lymphomas. See our publication by Gentili et al., a case report of acute lymphoblastic leukemia following the second dose of Comirnaty, and analysis of potential pathogenic mechanism. I'm going to wrap up real quick here. The spike proteins in Washington State actually caused excess secondary malignant neoplasm of lymph nodes. This is the work of John Bedouin. He's shown that there are excess cancers consistent with lymphomas that have come up in Washington State that is consistent with the cancer causing ability of these shots. By the end, I just want to wrap up, not take any more time, and say that these shots we were told that these shots are fully approved by the FDA. No, these shots are authorized under emergency use authorization. This means these shots can be adulterated, misbranded, mislabeled, expired, not subject to good manufacturing practice, and FDA must still approve them. This is 21 CFR 360 BBB through 3A. So you as counselors cannot say that they are safe because they are EUA authorized, which means they cannot be allowed to be adulterated. misbranded, not subject to good manufacturing process. They cannot be safe if they are allowed to be contaminated, misbranded, adulterated, expired. You must pull these shots. They're contaminated and adulterated, making proteins they were never intended to make. This can cause autoimmune disease, cancer, and death. Please don't allow our citizens and our children to be injected with a gene therapy so lethal the FDA tried to hide it from the public for 75 years. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Lindsay.
Yeah, sorry, it was a bit rushed. Thank you.
That. Thank you, Dr. Lindsay. Okay.
You have slides and they're right here, so hopefully these will
Does
work.
this, yeah, let's get that. If not, we'll do.
There we go. And then to get my slides on the screen.
So I just say welcome, Dr. Cole, and thank you for taking the time out of your busy schedule to come to Franklin County.
It's my honor to be here. Thank you so much. And seeing the bust of Benjamin Franklin in the background, I think we'll start with a quote. Those who would give up a little liberty for temporary safety deserve neither liberty nor safety. And, you know, I know it's hard to listen to all this information. I think a lot of people do have COVID fatigue. I understand that. But at this point, it's not just about COVID. It's about what's going forward as well. I'm Dr. Ryan Cole. I'm a board-certified anatomic and clinical pathologist trained at the Mayo Clinic. I have 500,000 patients of diagnostic experience in my career. If you Google me, I'm probably one of the worst doctors on the planet, according to Google, yet I've been humbled and honored to present the EU Parliament, UK Parliament, Italian Senate, Croatian Parliament, Romanian Parliament, Japanese Parliament, US Senate, US Congress multiple times. And when the whole world is silent, telling the truth is a revolutionary act. And I'm here to tell the truth. And, you know, as we found out over the last week, how much of our own federal funding has gone to suppress the speech of those who are trying to tell the truth. It's very unfortunate. I'm not here to judge anybody who took a shot, didn't take a shot. I'm here to recommend that nobody ever takes another genetic shot. I feel for all those who have been injured, and my heart goes out to those who are still suffering. And I'm here to just share a little bit of science, and hopefully we can rectify the situation the best way we can, but at the very least protect the citizens. I didn't take an oath to any administrator, any hospital, any organization. I took an oath when I became a physician to a patient. And at the end of the day, a lot of physicians have really lost connection to that oath. And it's very unfortunate, wittingly or unwittingly. You know, they bought into a lot of the narrative and a lot of, you know, the junk media and junk science that was out there. And I think it's important, for all of us to know, this was a study out of Hopkins of the 4 major world medical journals, the peer reviewers, half of them in the last, from 2020 to 2022 received $1.06 billion, the peer reviewers of these articles. And you wonder why some of the things that are shared today aren't in the literature. I'll tell you why, because the pharmaceutical companies and the medical device manufacturers paid that $1.06 billion to the peer reviewers of the literature. All right, if you focus too hard on the problem, the solution can often evade you. Informed consent went away. You know, how many people actually know what was in the product? We didn't. Most people didn't. Now we do. The other problem is we've given liability protection to the big pharmaceutical companies, plain and simple. You know, they can put whatever they want in it. They're not liable. And I think that's an important point to note. And when the science needs a pardon, that's when you know there's a problem. Here's my concern. It's not just about COVID, you know, bird flu, bird flu, bird flu. This is about this platform of a genetic therapy. And any gene product, as mentioned, takes about 15 years to make it to market for a reason, because those cancers show up late, those autoimmune diseases show up late. The problem is these manufacturers calling a gene therapy a vaccine, they don't have to do mutation studies, they don't have to do cancer studies, and they magically have this veil of liability over them. So this isn't just about COVID. They want to do this with all vaccines going forward, not just for us, but for animals too, because it's quick and easy and very financially beneficial to them. They don't have to keep the factories running. They can ramp it up quickly because it's convenient, but it doesn't mean it's safe. And the emergency authorization at best says the only thing they can claim is the term may be safe. Doesn't say safe and effective like we've heard drum beats for years. It only says may be safe. The SEC filing of Moderna, if you go back to 2020, their filing says it's a gene therapy. I'm not going to turn you into pathologists in my 5 minutes left here. But these products go all over the body. You know, we were told they stay in your arm. They go to the ovaries. They go to the brain. They go to the bone marrow. They go to the heart. They go everywhere. This is an uncontrolled, non-targeted product. Former Air Force, I was training to be a fighter pilot. Wanted my bombs to hit the target. You don't want to hit the whole population. And that's what these do to the cells in the body. They land wherever they want. The CDC took it off their webpage. They said, oh, it stays in the arm. Well, and then they quietly disappeared that. Unfortunately, you know, an intramuscular injection of any combination of substances with the intent of augmenting the immune system scientifically is dumb. It doesn't work. It makes the wrong kind of antibodies. The kind of antibodies you make in your nose, your mouth, your throat are called secretory IgA. Shots in the arm make IgG. It makes the wrong product even in your own body, if it even does that at all, which it makes a lot of wrong proteins, as Dr. Lindsay mentioned.
Dr. Cole, I just want to just say, you got more than 5 minutes.
Oh,
Don't
okay.
rush yourself. We just want to hear your testimony.
Yes,
please.
sir. Thank you very much. You know, here's the problem. The pathogen gene, so these COVID shots made the spike protein. Well, it was a gene to make the spike protein, and that was carried throughout the body. The CDC, interestingly, changed the definition of vaccine. So previously, it was, you know, something that prevented a disease. And Deborah Birx just this week, 2 days ago, said, oh, these weren't designed to prevent infection. Well, at best, that's a bad therapy. At best. They don't prevent transmission of the virus. They don't prevent disease. The claims that they save millions of lives, that big Lancet paper, was a model based on the initial incorrect predicted model of deaths. So you can't make a claim on a model based on a model. That's fantasy. The Ninth Circuit Federal Court basically acquiesced that, look, these aren't a traditional vaccine, and therefore it's akin to a medical treatment, not a vaccine. And this was in the U.S. School district, or the LA school district case recently. Antibody testing is what was done on the boosters in mice. No human trials. After the first round of shots, everything's only been done on lab animals, not on people. The booster that's out right now was designed for the KP2 variant JN1. And this was from a couple months ago, this slide. The percentage of that variant of the virus in the population right now is 0. So we have a booster that covers 0% of the variants that are out there right now. Yet the manufacturers are still giving it. And, you know, thankfully most Americans aren't taking these now. But we literally have an expired shot for an extinct variant, and yet they're still on the market. Antibodies don't equal immunity. And this is also a lie that unfortunately we've heard over and over and over. There are good antibodies and bad antibodies. On my little organic farm in Idaho, I'm a beekeeper as well. If I get stung, I don't want to hyperreact. So my immune system over time trains my body to say, hey, we got stung again. Let's ramp up a type of antibody called IgG4, which is called a tolerance antibody. Now that's great if you're allergic to something. If you're allergic to something, you want your body to eventually say, let's quit hyperreacting to whatever it is you're eating or in contact with. But what these shots do is they ramp up this IgG4 by multiple folds, which is horrible. You don't want to be tolerant to a pathogen. So the next time you get exposed to a pathogen, because now your body's ramped this up, and there are dozens of studies from around the world that show this now, the more shots, the more boosters you get, the more tolerant you are. So next time a variant comes along, it can rip through you. Your immune system is blind. It's like a ship without a keel or an engine in a storm. And then it also these shots cause your immune system to focus on the first thing they see. So they remember that first variant from years ago to the detriment of remembering future pathogens. Now, this isn't just about COVID. If we decide to do this with RSV, which they've started, or with bird flu, the same things are going to happen. This is known science. We've known this for decades. I knew this 30 plus years ago when I was in training at Mayo, this immune imprinting. And so why so much logical thought and science went out the window is a conundrum to me. Human cells are meant to make human proteins. So to put a gene in you and tell your cells, hey, let's make this foreign viral protein is, number one, dangerous, but number two, doesn't make any sense whatsoever. Cow cells are meant to make cow proteins. Chicken cells are meant to make chicken proteins. Mammal cells of any species are meant to make their own species proteins, not foreign viral or pathogenic proteins. And so when we reprogram the body of animals or people or whatever to make something they're not supposed to make, the immune system goes haywire. We have no study in the world that shows when the synthetic RNA is expunged from the body. None. This was Dr. Roltgen out of Stanford. 60 days later, it was still present in a cohort of her patients. And then she took it to publication. Dr. Brogna out of Italy showed in half of the patients in his study, 6 months after their last shot, they were still making spike protein. As Nicholas Holcher mentioned, there's a study that just came out showing 707 days later in one study, the synthetic genetic material is still present. This isn't about mRNA. You're all making mRNA right now, billions of copies. You're making bone, muscle, enzymes, digestive proteins, et cetera. We're all making it. This is synthetic RNA, and this is a genetic product. And again, unfortunately, we were misinformed. This is what Dr. Lindsay was trying to say. This was a great study out of Cambridge and Oxford by Mulroney et al. Not only is it making spike protein, this little code, but it's making Frankenstein proteins. So I'm going to take you back to biology class from probably a couple decades ago for all of us here. Amino acids are coded by 3 nucleic acids, and then the amino acids make up proteins. And so it has to read, so they're couplets of 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3. They add together and make different proteins. So like the dog ate the cat. But what this RNA does when it's reading that code, it can slip sometimes. So that sentence gets changed into nonsense. Now it's, you cut off the T, it's head oga etka eka. Makes no sense. So what the body is doing is making other proteins in addition to the spike protein. This is why we're seeing all sorts of strange autoimmune disease. Because not only are these shots causing the cells to make spike protein, which is very toxic, it's making proteins that the immune system is going, whoa, what do I do with this? And gosh, this kind of looks like my own tissue. Now you're making antibodies against that protein, which may also cause your immune system to attack your own cells of any organ in the body. And I'm not going to give you a long science lecture. Let me just show pictures worth 1,000 words. I think this is important for people to understand. And you can find this in the book, The Pfizer Papers, which goes through all the Pfizer data that was mandated by a federal judge to be released by Pfizer, because they tried to hide the data. And the FDA is supposed to be the regulator, but the FDA enjoined with Pfizer to try to hide the data from the American people for 76 years. A federal judge said, no, you'll release the data. But here's what happened in these trials that we all heard about, 40,000 patients. And then they based their findings on 0.4% of people in that 40,000 patient cohort. They used a very synthetic PCR process to make the product they injected in the trial. And right at the end of it, they started growing it in these vats of E. coli bacteria that we were hearing about. And they only had about 250 patients at the end, not enough to find any safety or danger signals. And that's the product the world got, not the one they trialed. the one they bait and switched at the very end. And that's why we're seeing these harms. They didn't study it. And then Moderna just recently took off their webpage their commitment to post-marketing safety surveillance. They're like, yeah, we promised that, but we're not going to do it anymore because they're immune. The only people that got immunity from these shots were the vaccine manufacturers, not the citizens. Adulteration, contamination, my colleagues talked about this. So this is the E. coli thing. You use DNA to make, it's the template to make the RNA, but they're contaminated with, the shots are contaminated with DNA. It's not supposed to be there. Bancel, the CEO of Moderna, even said, hey, look, we got to clean these of any DNA because in his own patents, he says it can be carcinogenic. That is known. It's been confirmed by independent labs all over the world now. Not only contamination with the DNA, but these adulterating known carcinogenic sequences that come from monkeys, SV40 monkey virus. This contaminated the polio viruses years ago and caused a big uptick of solid tumor cancers. So this is in the Pfizer. There's Bancel's patent. That's him basically saying, look, if you don't get the DNA out, it can cause horrible immune reactions, but it can also cause cancer. Safe and effective? They're not. Here's the 30 years of vaccine data for all vaccines combined, and then you see what happened in 2020 with thousands upon thousands of deaths. CDC's own reporting system, okay, people say, oh, well, VAERS is an antiquated system. True, it only shows about 1% of the harms, according to a Harvard study. CDC rolled out an app for 10 million people signed up, and it showed a 7% rate of people needing acute medical care after these shots. I'm going to just skip ahead. Here's the study Dr. Holcher, or Nicholas Holcher was saying. The more you inject, the more you infect, because it suppresses the immune system. The more shots you get, the more times you get COVID, plain and simple. Cleveland Clinic, you know, pretty, almost as good as Mayo. No, a great institution. And this was on 56,000 of their own employees. And they found, look, the more shots you got, the more you got COVID. So it immune suppresses. So you can't find what you don't look for. People say, well, why isn't all of this all over the literature by now? Well, most institutions, and to Commissioner Didier's question earlier about, you know, was it mandated? Most of these institutions, if you look at these things, you lose your job. You get attacked by licensing boards. You get attacked by professional organizations for telling the truth. So these studies, these long-term studies that should be done, they're not there. Now, I expect that to change with some of the new heads of new agencies in Washington. I think radical transparency is what we need. That's what we've been trying to do county by county, state by state, country by country, and we're exceedingly grateful for the opportunity to do this. I'm going to just go to the end here. I'm a pathologist, so I'm going to show you some pictures. This is spike protein. The little brown dots, that's in the muscle cells after the shots. The brown dots, that's in the capillaries of the brain and in the brain tissue. On the right, that's in the heart. This is the death and disability cardiovascular disease in the United Kingdom for ages 15 to 44. And you see in 21, 22, and 23 what happened. And that was after the rollout of the shots. Here's more brown dots. That's in the adrenal glands after the shots. On the right, that's blood vessels. That's spike protein depositing in the blood vessels. On the left, that's placenta. Another study just came out yesterday confirming in another model that this mRNA goes to the placenta. The spike protein, that is spike protein being expressed in the placenta after the shots. On the right, these are two different individuals. That spike protein, as my colleague said, almost replacing all the sperm in the testes. So you can't find what you don't look for. Yes, it causes clotting as well. I'm going to skip over that. These are some of those fibrous clots you hear about. Yes, they are real. Yes, we know what they're made of. These products are not safe. They're not effective. It's not about COVID. It's about this platform technology of synthetic mRNA and genetic injections going into your citizens, into my fellow citizens, into citizens of the world We're all human beings. We're all the same. We're all human. This isn't about, one person's science or another person's science. This isn't a red, blue, or a purple political issue. This is a humanity issue. And we're at a tipping point of making decisions to either protect each other. If the feds don't protect us, well, then the state has to. If the state's not going to, then we go down to the county level. And if our county doesn't do it, then we protect our families. But we have to protect each other, and we have to be concerned, caring citizens, and we have to do what's right for each other. In summary, and thank you for the time, you're very gracious, taxpayer money is being wasted on a dangerous genetic injection with all risk and zero benefit at this point. We need to act in the interest of the patient, above fear, above money, above threat. I wore the uniform proudly years ago. I took an oath to the Constitution. That oath has never gone away. I took an oath to my patients. That oath has never gone away. We take oaths to protect and do what's right, and I am grateful. Let's protect patients, let's protect citizens, and let's ban genetic injections. Thank you so much for your time. I'm happy to take any questions you may have.
Questions, commissioners?
Doctor, thank you for being here and sharing with us. To be bluntly honest, most of that went over my head.
Oh, certainly.
Not being in the healthcare industry. There is a number of observations that I made. You answered some of them, but I'm just going to write down some of the notes that I took. The definition of vaccine had to change, is my understanding, in order for the COVID-19 vaccine to be labeled a vaccine. Is that accurate?
It changed. I don't know that they had to, but I think it's pretty interesting that it changed 3 times over a couple of years. And instead of saying prevent a disease, to create an immune response. Well, if I send one of my lovely 6 daughters outside to play in the yard and they eat dirt, I promise it's going to create an immune response, but it doesn't make dirt a vaccine. And so I think it's very disingenuous to, as we've seen in much of society, definitions constantly change and words constantly are changing meaning. Part of the story and the question you bring up, in order to emergency authorize a vaccine product, there can't be any therapy that's efficacious against that disease. So as we know, there were certain medicines which shall not be named, which were maligned, and one of those huge studies on hydroxychloroquine was withdrawn this week because it was false data. And they use those types of studies to say, oh, there's nothing to treat this, quote, novel disease, when this disease was 70% similar to other coronaviruses. We all get a coronavirus every couple of years as a common cold. A lot of us, never even had symptoms of COVID because we've had it before. So to your point, long answer short, yeah, they changed the definition.
Didn't hydroxychloroquine win a Nobel Prize? I believe it was the year before.
That was ivermectin that won the Nobel.
I'm sorry, ivermectin.
It did.
Won a Nobel Prize in use in humans.
Yeah, about almost 4 billion people had taken it to that point in time, correct.
And then when this happened, all of a sudden now doctors are being pilloried and frankly lose their license when they recommended using this horse medicine.
Well,
that won a Nobel Prize.
I love that analogy because guess what else is a horse medicine? Penicillin, ibuprofen. Mammals are similar in medicines. So the FDA, they they settled in the Fifth Circuit Federal Court saying, okay, we'll take down our propaganda. But even the state of Washington, you have some fantastic physicians here, including myself that still has a Washington license. They unequally applied the law. Since 1997, the FDA has encouraged off-label use of medicine. And they only went after the doctors that used ivermectin, not the cardiologist that says take an aspirin, or not the psychiatrist that gives an SSRI off-label or anything like that. So yeah, they pilloried safe, effective medicines. That medicine alone has 20 known mechanisms of action. I've written white papers on it. And yes, it's antiviral. It's antiviral against COVID, dengue, yellow fever, HIV, a bunch of other viruses. So great question. Thank you.
So the COVID-19 vaccine is it now FDA approved, or is it still being used in an emergency order? Or
Here's what's funny is the Moderna, the Spikevax that got a quote emergency approval covered the earlier variants that were gone years ago. And then the Comirnaty was supposedly approved but never appeared in the United States. It was only manufactured in Europe and never appeared here. And there were a lot of bait and switches with our own military members where they told them they were getting Comirnaty and they weren't. So, you know, again, we have expired shots for extinct variants.
so could you kind of give us a parallel? My understanding is the common cold or the flu that people would typically be, get a vaccination, some people every year for the common flu. My understanding and understand that I'm not in the medical industry, so I'm trying to understand this the best I can. So my understanding, they make their best guess of the top 4 or 5 flu variants, and that becomes this year's flu vaccine out of a potential almost 400 variants. Is that kind of close to?
Very well said, yes.
So
it's
could you
always
make
a best guess.
Could you make a somewhat of a parallel to the COVID vaccine or the I don't know what we're up to, 37 boosters or something to that level? I'm not sure what it is now.
Yeah. Best analogy is going to the fair and playing whack-a-mole. This family of viruses is always mutating, and it mutates fast enough that if they say, well, we formulated it for the current variant, we're ready to go, roll it out. By the time you roll it out, whack-a-mole, it's gone. And so coronaviruses, I mean, historically, I've known this since my virology courses at Mayo. Coronaviruses are known to mutate. Why don't we have a vaccine to the common cold, the rhinovirus? Because they mutate quickly as well. And so this is where we've, lost the forest for the trees, is why don't we focus on early treatments? There's a lot of money to be made in the vaccine industry and no liability. But there are a lot of safe, effective medicines. Why don't we focus on health? Why don't we focus on vitamin D levels? Why don't we focus on sunshine? Why don't we focus on our obesity crisis and the health? COVID really hit those with comorbidities, and, almost 4 comorbid conditions were the ones that did the worst. But, to your point, a vaccine against coronavirus is medically illogical, to your very point. You can't keep up with it. Same thing, the flu is a little different in terms of how it mutates, but it's still a guessing game. But coronavirus is a different story. You'll never catch them.
So back to the point you were making before, so hydroxychloroquine and ivermectin both have been shown by medical professionals to be effective to some level.
Well,
as a
Anthony
treatment.
Fauci was on the paper in 2005 from the NIH saying hydroxychloroquine is effective against SARS-CoV-1, which is 76% similar to this. And yeah, there are dozens and dozens of studies, not just for COVID, but for influenza, hydroxychloroquine and ivermectin, plenty of studies showing a good degree of efficacy against a lot of them.
So for this to be used in an emergency fashion, which is my understanding is what it was in the beginning, it had to have no known effective treatment.
Right. So if you can demean that which works, then you can get your emergency product on the market and make hundreds of billions of dollars for the manufacturers.
Okay. So if you take a COVID vaccine for the variant from last month, how does that interact? Is it helpful to a new strain, or how does that? I don't understand how that works.
So proteins, they shift shape, and then sugars attached to them. So antibodies are like locks and keys, and you want a very specific key to the lock. You want it to attach where it is, so your immune cells say, oh, look, that's bound to that. That's what we need to gobble up. In come your garbage truck cells, and they say, okay, that's bound to that. That's bad. Let's eat it. Get rid of it. What happens is if you get a shot and you make a bad antibody that binds partially, now it's kind of flapping in the breeze. The garbage truck comes along and says, I don't quite know what to do with that. So you got, this last shot, this last variant, and your immune cells are confused, and what ends up happening is what we call antibody-dependent enhancement. So instead, these garbage truck cells get infected by that antibody pulling the virus in instead of gobbling it up. Now you have an enhanced disease. So getting an expired booster that, the technical term is called binding neutralizing antibodies. These expired boosters don't make the appropriate type of antibody, so the immune system gets confused, and you can actually get, like that Cleveland Clinic study showed, you actually end up getting more disease because the immune system is confused and suppressed. And so, and think about it, when in the history of medicine have we said, well, to keep up with this disease, we're going to have to give you a series of 10 shots over time. I think we're up to number 10 right now.
Not 37?
Not quite 37, but, hyperbolically, if there's money to be made, we may get to that point.
Thank you. So a couple other observations, I guess you would say, that I've made. And really the only way that I can kind of make a parallel as somebody that's in the land development business, not in healthcare, is I can't tell you, I can't count, I don't have enough fingers and toes to count the number of times that I've heard people say, well, this is best practices. Well, according to who? And so that's something. And so with that, the parallel I would make is we heard over and over dozens of times on a daily basis that there's a scientific consensus. Could you speak to that? What does scientific consensus mean? Because that's not science as I understand it.
No. If there's consensus in science, it is not science. The moment there's consensus, science is dead. Science is a process. The science is settled is censorship. Do we still do ice pick lobotomies? No, we don't. Do we still use leeches? No, we don't. Do we excessively prescribe opioids anymore? No, we don't. Do we use mercury for syphilis? No, we don't. Do we radiate acne anymore? No, we don't. I can go on and on. The list of things scientifically and medically that have been done over the centuries that we look back and go, oh my goodness, why did we do that? To say that there is consensus in science is to say somebody's not thinking.
It appears to be a direct oxymoron.
Absolutely. Like General Patton said, if everybody's thinking alike, then somebody isn't thinking.
So one last observation, since I've been hogging all the time. So I read the Hippocratic Oath. And so the Hippocratic Oath is an interesting thing that it's had a few adjustments over time, but it appears to go back as far as 460 BC or 275 AD, but that's a long time ago. That is a very, very long time ago. And it's the primary piece of that for a physician that takes that oath is first do no harm.
Amen.
That is the first component of that, and I would say if you boiled that Hippocratic Oath down, that's what would remain, is first do no harm. And it appears that with scientific consensus and all of these things that have happened, hydroxychloroquine is a horrible, evil thing that will cause everybody to die, makes no sense, and especially when you have taken the Hippocratic Oath of first do no harm.
And I would like to add to that, because that's a brilliant observation. It's not just physical harm, but think of the psychological harm that was caused, and the financial harm that was caused, and the societal harm that was caused in the name of science and in the name of consensus. So thank you for bringing that up. And I implore my colleagues in medicine, yes, there's forgiveness, but at the same time, there has to be repentance. And a lot of the medical profession, wittingly or unwittingly, participated in something that was horrendously harmful.
Commissioner Mullen?
Oh, I just want to say thank you for coming today. It's been very informative, and I'm glad I didn't take the shot.
Well, thank you, and it's an honor to be here. And again, we know it's a lot of information. We're not going to turn anyone into a scientist in one day, but hopefully just the bigger picture of this is, it's not about any of us, it's about all of us. We care about that oath. We care about those patients. Yes, we've been maligned and silenced, but we're grateful when there are those that will at least give an opportunity for the truth to be heard. So thank you so much. Appreciate it.
Thank you.
So if I might add to your list, back when we were becoming a country, they bled people when they were sick.
Yes, they
And I'm
did.
glad they quit doing that. But a couple things on this. It says here that current no study or publicity known mechanism exists for an off switch to stop the production of this toxic spike protein, which is the synthetic molecule. Is there anybody that's working on that right now? And well, the second question is, how does that spike protein that is synthetic reproduce in your body?
Well, one of two ways. It's either integrated into the nucleus of your cell or sitting right outside that nucleus in the cytoplasm.
Okay.
But it's sitting somewhere if these studies are showing these patients. Most of these studies, again, because of censorship in science and because of threat of reprisal, most of these studies have been done by those of us out of our own pockets. A lot of those slides I showed were from my laboratory when I still had it before all the attacks. Some of them were from my late great colleague, Dr. Arne Burkhardt in Germany. But all of these have been privately funded because we couldn't get the NIH funding. And again, you can't find what you don't look for. But these studies should be done in, you have a fantastic university. University of Washington is a great research institution. So is Washington State. They should be doing that. They have all the equipment. They have all the chemicals, all the reagents. The only thing they're lacking is the courage to do it. They could do it tomorrow, faster than we did independently, out of our own pockets.
And then on our resolution here, it also states, and this is just a statement, not a question for you, but it states, prohibits, mandates, local, state, national, and global regarding medical procedures or interventions in any modality. So this resolution we're passing prohibits mandates. And I think we're all looking to make sure that we do that because it's your free will. It's your decision if you want to take a vaccine or wear a mask. And
Informed consent.
Informed consent. And yet fear took over this nation and they use fear to push this mandate. And our Fourth Amendment right says we're secure in our own person and that we can't be searched without our permission unless there's an arrest warrant, or we can't be injected with something without our consent. And so, saying that we were derived from this God's will, this country was ordained, the Christian values, I'm all for passing this resolution today. And I thank you so much for taking the time to come to Franklin County, and I hope we create a movement. But I thank you for your courage, for stepping out and being the front man with these other doctors that we heard from today.
Well, as
stopping this.
Speaking for the team, and we're humbled and honored, so thank you.
Thank you, Doctor.
With that, I'll make the motion to approve Resolution 2025-076 as presented.
Second with discussion.
There's been a motion and a second for Resolution 2025-076 with discussion.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. A couple of the observations I would make about this resolution that's in front of us. In a number of ways, I don't think it goes far enough, and it would be my preference that we adjust it to make it stronger in a couple of ways. One of those specifically being that we are for freedom and the freedom for people to make the choice of their own. And so I don't believe this describes strong enough that we are against mandates, against requiring people. There's many people in our community lost their jobs. They were required to do it, and it became very, very coercive. It became, I mean, there was sections in sports stadiums of the vaxxed and the unvaxxed. It drove a wedge into our community, and I think that it does not speak strong enough to what I believe our voice is of saying we are against mandates, against the government requiring. And so that would be an observation that I make. The other observation is we're making a statement of our belief in freedom. And this resolution in front of us today is very long, and it has information here with words and descriptions that are over my head. And I believe that is it doesn't do a service to our community to have something that isn't understandable except by medical personnel. So that would be my a couple of observations about this. I don't think it speaks strongly enough in those two ways, and so I'm not against passing it today, but that's just a couple of observations that I would make, that it could speak stronger in those ways.
And I would agree with you, but I think it's important today, with the momentum that's going on, is to pass this. We can always amend it, we can always redo it, but I think it's very important to get the ball rolling in Washington State at this point in time. So, is there any other discussion?
No, I think we should pass it. I mean, what's been done to the citizens of our country it's unacceptable and it's horrendous.
Well said. If there's no further comments, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Did Commissioner Bauman, did you vote?
I did.
Oh, I'm
Aye.
sorry. You
Yes.
guys were I didn't hear two voices, I only heard one. So with that, congratulations, Dr. Cole and the team. Thank you so much for coming.
Thank you.
You're making a difference in the world. God bless you. And with that, we'll go back to our Commissioner Administrator updates. Commissioner Mullen.
So this morning I had the Tri-City Regional Chamber of Commerce 2024 with new goals: engage, build, and lead. They set forward 8 new goals. A couple of them ones that I found very interesting and very supportive are concerning the young professionals to identify needs in our community, grow their role as a premier advocate of local, state, and federal issues, and 7, a robust connecting between employees and education with career fairs, internships, connections. And of the 8th, I was very pleased to see those ones. This last week fielded some calls on snow removal. Craig Ergman was very informative with me, and when snow removal is only done throughout the county on the weekends when there's an accumulation of more than 4 inches of snow. We try to do the best we can in plowing the roads and keeping them bare, but limited funds. And I know taxpayer dollars all go to pay for that, but I think the biggest misconception is the county receives less than 10% of all the property taxes to run our county government. The majority of that going to your school districts. Just want to make sure everybody's aware of the House Bill 1921, the mileage tax. We already pay a high gas tax. I do not support that bill in any way. So later today, I have the health board meeting at 1:30 if anybody's interested in doing public comment. Also today, Visit Tri-Cities has an open house from 1 to 4. That's first annual Destination Professionals Day. It's over at the Grand Ridge Boulevard if you're interested in that. And then tonight at 5:30, we have the Good Roads of Benton, Franklin, Walla Walla. And there's an opportunity for public comment at that meeting as well. Lamb Weston has agreed to sell their complex in Connell, which will help the city of Connell by keeping the property on tax rolls as opposed to tearing it down, is what the plan was previously. Dairy Gold Milk Facility on Railroad Avenue should be opened up this summer. Also had the opportunity to go to the Home and Garden Show, talk to the vendors. It was well attended, and the vendors had a good comment and interest that the show was a success with more business leads. And that concludes my
Thank you.
report for this week.
My report was last week, Columbia Snake River Irrigators meeting, where I gave the information for Mr. Baumgardner to the lobbyist there so that he can get in touch with him for the fight to save the Snake River dams from any talk of breach. Columbia Basin Sustainable Water Coalition meeting, Ben Franklin Transit meeting, where I brought up the veteran who proposed that Ben Franklin Transit help shuffle the veterans over to Walla Walla. They said they already have 3 shuttles going there throughout the day, but did not stop by the Veterans Service Center. But I got in touch with the VSO, and I'm going to get a meeting scheduled with the VSO and the head of Ben Franklin Transit and see if we can't make some more trips, special with just veterans going over for the VA hospital. Very important that we take care of the men and women that have served this country and give us our freedom. Had meetings with the administrator and with Wes, and I appreciate Wes taking the time to come down and man up that planning and building department. And I can tell the people that there's going to be a change in Franklin County, and it's going to be a good one. And the last thing I'd like to report is that we still have not heard from the AG office on the unconstitutional pay. When you vote yourself a wage increase in midterm, that's not right. It's illegal, and you're supposed to pay it back. And we still have not heard anything from the AG on the unconstitutional pay of the commissioners previous. So that's the end of my report, and I'd like to thank Eric Johnson, because we've only got one more week with him, and he will be missed. Your short stay here in Franklin County has been, like I said, we had turbulent waters, and you calmed the waters, and the ship is sailing on course, and we thank you for your direction and your leadership. Very well done.
Thank you.
And with that, we'll go down to executive session. Do we have a need for an executive session? Oh, public comment. That's right. Thank you. The clerk of the board. Public comment. Anybody in the audience?
Good morning, gentlemen. I deeply appreciated that, and I hope that that is helpful. That was an article sent to you by myself, including Dr. Cole, when he did congressional hearings with Dr. Ron Johnson of Wisconsin. And I'm proud to see that we have taken the step to initiate this, and I think there's a very valid constitutional issue with those who are in office who are also under oath. And I would remind you of the U.S. Constitution, Amendment 14, Section 3. When you violate your oath, you are no longer qualified to be in office. There is no, often we hear about due process. In the Constitution, there is not due process. There may be a grand jury where they look at the evidence, what happened, and it's done. And it's done by the citizens. And that has been attempted, and that is an ongoing work in Washington State. And I will be providing you with an explanation of how our state came together. It was the counties that legislated and put the state together. In other words, the county is the parent, the state is the child. And that's not how we understand it, that's not how we experience it, because over time we have become constitutionally illiterate. And I will definitely be supporting and sending ongoing continuing documentation and eventually bringing a resolution before you as well. With regard to Ben Franklin Transit and this presentation that we had by the COG, I would like to still present Franklin's own transit system and be independent and have taxes remain here and be a little more fluid with our funds and not so tight and dig us out of a hole. And so I know that some of you serve on that board and they love to expand, but too much taxpayer money is sitting over there not really serving the needs. And I would once more again remind you of the renewable natural gas, that we can become energy independent with that. I did send it into some of the bills that were proposed as a counter proposal. And with a final note, I would ask you to look at Senator Binky's act and supporting what Senator Reish is doing in Idaho, and combine that, Dan Newhouse is also in on it, with a Energy Security Act. But that's where I think you can make a lot of ground with Senator Baumgartner, because he wants to turn on those turbines in the dams. Thank you for your time.
Hello, my name is Natalie Chavez. Thank you for listening to public comments today. I drove around 5 hours from Whatcom County to attend this meeting today to show my support for the resolution regarding the COVID-19 vaccines. I came here today to witness the passing of the resolution, so thank you all for that. And thank you all for being brave, being critical thinkers, and for bringing hope to Washingtonians who reside both in and outside of Franklin County. My hope is that there will be a ripple effect with similar resolutions across Washington state from county to county. One can only hope. Regardless, your resolution will bring light and truth to years of COVID darkness and evil that we've all had to endure. Who would have thought that numerous effective COVID treatment protocols would be suppressed from community members? Like high doses of vitamin D, high doses of liposomal vitamin C, high doses of melatonin, liposomal glutathione, NAC, quercetin and zinc, hydroxychloroquine and zinc, ivermectin, nebulizers, using budesonide in a nebulizer. And the list goes on and on. So many people suffered and died needlessly when they could have been treated humanely without the deadly hospital COVID treatment protocols, which included the use of remdesivir and ventilators. Many people did not know that the effective and humane COVID treatment protocols had to be suppressed in order for vaccine manufacturers to get an emergency use authorization for their toxic experimental COVID-19 vaccines. There are numerous COVID vaccine injured individuals in my Whatcom community, and some who have died, like Tyler, who was a father in his 30s. He suffered a lot and had financial stress in the last days of his life due to all of his medical bills. Prior to his death, he set up a GoFundMe page explaining that his cardiologist had informed him that he would not live without a heart transplant. Tyler wrote on his GoFundMe page, quote, "I was hospitalized for 18 days in St. Joseph's ICU with complications from the coronavirus vaccination. My heart was failing, and I had developed 3 blood clots inside my heart and 1 clot in my leg," unquote. Tyler is dead now. He died on January 30th, 2024, and his daughter is now fatherless. There are others like Tyler who are dead now, and Tyler, who was in his 30s, probably had around a 0% chance of dying from COVID-19 in the first place. There has been no informed consent, no transparency, and no comprehensive risk versus benefit analysis of these products that are being given to people before they're being injected with these toxic vaccines. So thank you all very much for passing the resolution today. And lastly, in case there may be any COVID vaccine injured individuals here today or who may be listening online, support and resources are available for you at the website react19.org. That is REACT19.org. Thank you for your time, and thank you for everything that you are doing to protect your community members.
Thank you.
Good morning, Commissioners. Peter Harpster. I just wanted to extend a welcome to Mr. McCart as a planning building director, and mention my appreciation for getting that position filled somewhat quickly. And it took a few months, but that is relatively quickly for a position like that. The last few months since Mr. Bratton left have been pretty difficult and brutal. And as far as a land development perspective goes, we've got 6 land development projects that we're working on in the county, and 3 of them have been significantly delayed. And I've tried to communicate with the contract planners at HBL to no avail, and was near the end of my rope and had reached out to Mr. Johnson, and didn't want to reach out to you 3 directly because that seemed like a kind of a scorched earth effort, but was getting close and just didn't know what to do. So very happy to have him here, and look forward to working with them and getting these projects back on track for the county. Thanks.
Thank you.
Good morning, Commissioners. Almost noon. Thank you so much for this presentation. I recall being in this very room when I had a commissioner walk out of here because we weren't wearing face masks, even though we had scientific evidence presented by Stephen Petty that they were ineffectual. I hope everyone gets on Facebook and looks up a young man named Christian Robbins. This young man would have graduated last year. He would have graduated from Richland High School. He is a young man who took his life because he gave up hope. There's a father that I drove by the body of who took his life by jumping off of the Court Street overpass onto the blind side to oncoming traffic. I hope we remember his 8 children. I really hope that those that are listening and those that participated in that can really self-reflect, because as the gentleman said, self-reflection needs to be brought and repentance for everything that happened and that was put upon. So many people lost their businesses. So many people took their lives. And I know that I presented on that same exact study that the gentleman that I walked in was presenting, that was proven in 2005 that hydroxychloroquine stopped all COVID and SARS type viruses when given early. But to defame that, Dr. Fauci used a study of people that were on their deathbed whose lungs were completely gone, and used that study to defame hydroxychloroquine that would have saved many lives. And I was censured on Facebook for sharing that study. I was censured on Facebook by encouraging people to go to their doctors and have their vitamin D levels checked. I sat by a woman at a school board meeting who was kicked out even though she had a card not to wear face masks. And I was told they would not start the meeting unless I put one on. And yet they knew that they were ineffectual when they did that. So many monstrous things that happened. I walked into a Walmart when no one was in there, but didn't walk down the right way down the aisle because I didn't follow the arrow, even though there was no one else in that store or down that aisle. That's the monstrous things that happen. But none of that compares to what they did to our children. 4 children at Richland High took their lives. And there were 4 chairs at that graduation that had flowers on them. Didn't even do enough to understand what those families went through. Thank you.
Thank you. Anybody else for public comment?
Hi, thank you. I won't take long. I'm Bob Runnels. I'm a director at Informed Choice Washington, and we've been fighting for informed consent, fully informed consent for over 10 years. Really, really thankful for the measure you took today. I wanted to give you a brief history of other county efforts that took place during the pandemic in Clark County. 11,000 citizens signed a petition to ask the county for an ordinance against mandates, just to stop the mandates. We can make our own decisions. That was turned down by the county council because they didn't want to pay the legal fees to fight the AG's office, who would then try to overturn them legally. So kind of a weak excuse to not even take the step that you've basically done today. I do agree that the resolution could be stronger on mandates as well, because there could still be some businesses that might be basically coercing their employees and against a fairly risky procedure. Cowlitz County, also on the west side, has signed a medical freedom resolution, and that was done in 23. That is pretty strong on mandates as a resolution, and there may be some language there you could borrow. I don't, at this point, there are other jurisdictions in the states that have turned against the mandates, turned against the COVID shots. So you've got Florida, you've got Louisiana, and there are other people that are kind of coming to this rescue. There is a breaking rumor this morning. In fact, foreign press is writing about how the COVID shots could be banned in the U.S. There are people in positions of the federal level that, that there's more to come on that. And I'm just giving you a heads up that you may have some further support if you get any community backlash. And again, thank you.
Thank you. Anybody else for public comment?
Good morning, Commissioners. The first time here for a while. I'm glad you guys took a big step today. I haven't been here for a while about this, but I'm glad you opened some of the questions, Stephen, with open questions to the gentleman. A lot of information is well known. A lot of people got damaged, and they'll continue to be damaged. The problem is how we can reverse that. There's ways I think can be done to help that. What I know, by listening to certain things, over 60 billion to RNA, or the the vaccine. I mean, the damage, the molecular, on the molecular level, there's 60 doses of RNA are in our bodies or people's bodies. What I always say. So how do you reverse that? I think there's some stuff there, but I'm glad you guys took the step. I'm glad you didn't delay it. You can amend it, but I appreciate it. A lot of people made a lot of comments. A lot of information that doctor was presented, well known. People want to take their time, fine. Also, freedom is what we want, and everybody has a choice. Take it, drink it, whatever you want to do with food, it's your choice. You want to die young, fine. If you want young, soon, whatever. Appreciate it. Thank you, and Mr. Johnson. I think it's well to see you again. Appreciate the help. Thank you.
Thank you. Anybody else for public comment? Anybody on the phone? Okay, so at this time, we will end public comment, and we are going to go into executive session. You want to call out the RCW and...
This is to evaluate the qualifications of an applicant for public employment. So this would be under RCW 4230-110 1G. Now, who does the board want present during this meeting? This is one executive session where legal counsel is not required to be present. I certainly can be available during it. I'm here, so I'm happy to attend along with the rest of the legal team. But it's certainly up to the board. Unlike the executive session that I like to call during these meetings, my presence is not strictly required. I guess is what I'm getting at.
Okay.
I would like you to be here.
Yes, okay. I think, Mr. Baumann?
It would be my preference that it would be the three commissioners and our interim administrator and no one else.
And no legal?
I'm okay if no legal, that would be my preference, but if you would prefer to have
I don't
it that
think
way.
we need the whole legal team, but I would entertain having Jeff in the room.
Certainly.
If that was good. And the clerk of the board.
Okay.
For how long?
I would say at least 15 minutes.
Okay, we'll start with 15. We'll take a 5-minute recess before we go into executive session, and I need a recess.
So, Mr. Chairman,
yes, sir.
if you're willing, I would ask that we adjourn to the
oh yes,
room number 5 downstairs, and then we adjourn the meeting from that location.
I think we got to stay in session for an executive session, do we not?
You'll have to come back and close the meeting.
Okay, I can do that. Okay, okay, we'll recess down to room 5 for the executive session.
Thank you.
And we will go into executive session at, if we're just walking down there, we'll go into executive session at 1:55, so we'll come out at 2:10. Evaluation. We have come out of executive session with those decisions being made, and we are back to regular session. Amend the agenda.
Say again?
Drive safe. Thank you.
Thank you.
All of humanity thanks you. All of humanity thanks you.
All of humanity thanks you guys.
No,
Thank you.
Forward to the ripple effects.
All right.
we hope.
Probably help Idaho pass, honestly, the whole thing. So
Thank you.
Mr. Chairman, I'd like to make a motion to amend our agenda today to include an item under regular business. And that item would be to, I'd like to amend the agenda to authorize our interim administrator to enter negotiations, contract negotiations with a successor for our interim administrator for another interim administrator.
Second?
There's been a motion and a second for our administrator to entertain,
Amending the agenda.
to amend the agenda to
Consider that.
consider our administrator hiring a interim administrator to fill his shoes until we hire an administrator. So all in favor, say aye.
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 So now, Mr. Chairman, I'd like to make a motion on the amended agenda to authorize Mr. Eric Johnson, our interim administrator, to enter contract negotiations with one Brian Danzel to bring us back a resolution next week to hire a successor for our interim administrator on an interim basis.
Second?
There's been a motion and a second for our administrator to start negotiations with Brian Danzel so that next week we can sign the hiring of our new interim administrator, which none of us want to hear say, but we thank you, Eric, for everything you've done for us. So without further ado, there's been a motion and a second. All in favor, say aye.
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 Sure you don't want to stay?
So with that, is there any other business? Is there any other business for the good of the county?
No, sir.
No, sir.
This meeting is adjourned. Is there any, and we do not have a workshop, and Commissioner Mull and I got to get to the health board meeting, which I told him we might be remote.